Chapter 211. Rumor has it that the Prince of Yong and Grand Secretary Chen's families were close. The Princess of Yong and Grand Secretary Chen's wife gave birth at the same time. The Princess of Yong gave birth to a baby girl, while Grand Secretary Chen's wife gave birth to a baby boy. Afterwards, the Princess of Yong said that she wanted to see Grand Secretary Chen's son. As a result, when the Prince of Yong's residents sent the baby back, the Chun residents discovered that it was a baby girl. Wu Zhuge and Su Tianhong cautiously glanced at Chun Jialuo's expression. Everyone knew that Chun Jialuo was Grand Secretary Chen's second son. Humph, it's just a rumor. Yu Wanning snorted coldly. The Prince of Yong already had a son. Why would he take such a huge risk to have a Han son? At that time, the Prince of Yong and the previous emperor were at a critical juncture in the struggle for the throne. If this matter was reported to the emperor by the previous emperor, what do you think the consequences would be? That's true. Su Tianhong nodded his head. Back then, the Prince of Yong was the most popular candidate for the throne. In the end, it was the previous emperor who ascended to the throne. Could it be that he lost the qualifications to pursue the throne because he adopted a Han as his son? Yu Yutong was skilled in both the pen and the sword. Her thoughts had always been meticulous. When she thought of this possibility, she promptly speculated. The Prince of Yong's failure to become emperor was indeed closely related to this child. However, it is not the reason that you are thinking. Thinking of the past, Yu Wanning's tone was filled with sorrow and reminiscence. The members of the Red Flower Society looked at each other, not daring to ask any questions. Chun Jialuo had always believed that Hong Li was his older brother. Now, it seemed that there was more to this than met the eye. He promptly pricked up his ears and waited for Yu, wanting to continue. Approximately 40 years ago, I had a childhood sweetheart. She was the eldest daughter of the Qian family of Haining. Her name was Zhen Huan. At that time, we fell in love with each other and originally planned to marry. In the end, we ran into the Prince of Yong, who was out hunting. According to the customs of the Manchurian Qing, the imperial family would shoot and kill sick deer and drink their blood during the hunt for the Central Plains. The deer's blood was hot, and after the Prince of Yong drank it, he became agitated and did not keep the princess by his side. Coincidentally, he saw Zhen Huan. Yu Wanning paused, a pained expression on his face. It was clear that 40 years had not been able to erase the pain of that day. Everyone present gradually understood what had happened. They all looked at him sympathetically. At that time, my martial arts were not yet complete, and I was unable to prevent the Prince of Yong from taking her away. I was severely injured by the Prince of Yong's imperial bodyguards and barely managed to escape. For the sake of revenge, I went to the southern Shaolin Temple to crazily practice martial arts. Feeling that my martial arts were accomplished, I returned to Xingjing to seek revenge on the Prince of Yong. That day, when I infiltrated the Prince of Yong's residence, I originally believed that Zhen Huan had been killed. I never expected that she would become the Prince of Yong Shifujin and give birth to his son, the current Hong Li. She was also very excited to see me. After we chatted for a while, I learned that after the Prince of Yong had forcefully taken her, he had fallen in love with her. Bringing her back to his residence, he cared for her in every possible way. However, due to the ironclad rule that the imperial family could not marry between the Manchus and the Han, the Prince of Yong had Ling Zhu, the Minister of Internal Affairs of the Bordered Yellow Banner, accept her as his adopted daughter. He had Zhen Huan change her surname to Nu Huelu in order to deceive others. Zhen Huan knew that I wanted revenge and agreed to leave with me. However, she begged me to spare her son's life. My heart softened and I agreed. However, I actually had another plan. Another plan? The members of the Red Flower Society did not expect that there would be such a story. Hearing Yu Wanning's words, they were all shocked. Correct. Yu Wanning nodded his head. Compared to the Han, the Manchus are rare. The founding emperor was worried that the Manchus would be assimilated by the Han. As a result, he established an ironclad rule that members of the imperial family could not marry with the Han, thus ensuring the purity of their bloodline. Looking at the young son in Zhen Huan's arms, a thought flashed through my mind. The Prince of Yong doted on her so much. If the Prince of Yong ascended to the throne, Then Zhen Huan would likely become the empress. This half-Han child would likely become the next emperor. When the time came, the emperor would be half-Han, and the empress dowager would also be Han. Wouldn't it be much easier for us to overthrow the Qing and restore the Ming? As a result, I forcefully suppressed the grief in my heart and had Zhen Huan continue to stay in the Prince of Yang's residence. Moreover, I was to use every method at my disposal to vie for the Prince of Yang's position. Zhen Huan did not understand the situation and believed that I despised her for losing her chastity. Extremely heartbroken and disappointed, she abandoned herself to despair and actually did as I said. From then on, the Prince of Yang doted on her more and more. In the end, he made Hongli his heir. Unfortunately, the plans of man are no match for the plans of heaven. In the end, this matter was leaked. The emperor at that time, Huang Taiji, learned of this matter. In a great rage, he chose Fulin as the successor to the throne. The Prince of Yang lost the throne, but he did not blame Zhen Huan. On the contrary, he doted on her even more. Although the Prince of Yang was my irreconcilable enemy, in this aspect, I rather admired him. Afterwards, the Empress Dowager was harmed by Dorgan and died in the depths of the palace. Afterwards, Oboy and Dorgan fought for power and profit, stirring up several bloody storms in the imperial court. Those who knew of this matter were either banished or killed. Very few people know of this secret, let alone the current Kangxi. Even Fulin for back then probably does not know why Huang Taiji chose him. He even believes that Dorgan was the one who helped him ascend the throne. How laughable! For the sake of the nation, the old branch master made such a sacrifice. It is truly a moving song. Daoist Wuchen and the others all sighed. However, Luo Bing felt indignant. The one who made the sacrifice was clearly that Lady Wan. She was used as a chess piece by her beloved lover. If she knew the truth, who knows how heartbroken she would be. Chen Jialua grew suspicious when he heard this. He thought to himself, according to what adoptive father said, Hongli was born of the Prince of Yong and Qian Wen, while I was born of Grand Secretary Chen and Madame Chen. There is no blood relationship between the two. Then why do we look so similar? When Tai Lai's expression wavered. In the end, he seemed to have made a great decision. I have offended you just now. I hope that the old branch master will not take offense. I originally didn't want to say this, but sigh. Yuan glanced at when Tai Lai and sighed deeply. The old branch master is a man of great righteousness. How can we husband and wife be such selfish people? Bing, for the sake of the great cause of the rebellion against the Qing, I'm afraid that you will have to suffer. One Tai Lai's tiger-like eyes brimmed with tears as he turned his head to look at Luo Bing. Luo Bing was furious. These men keep talking about the great cause. What did they ever ask for my opinion? Men's great cause had to be exchanged for a woman's body. There was no need for such a great cause. When she noticed the matter-of-fact gazes of the various leaders present, her heart gradually grew cold. In any case, she had already been treated like that by Song Qingshu that day. Her body was no longer pure. At worst, she could just treat it as a dog biting her. After understanding everything, Luo Bing's expression was as cold as ice. Chief Branch Master, please instruct me. Luo Bing will naturally do her best. The group of leaders looked at their usually smiling, charming, and gentle fourth sister-in-law, suddenly turning into such a frosty appearance. They felt somewhat uncomfortable in their hearts and avoided her gaze. Chief Branch Master, there are other ways to deal with Song Qingshu. We don't necessarily have to sacrifice fourth sister-in-law. Yu Yutong had always liked Luo Bing very much. He naturally couldn't bear to see her suffer like this. What method do you have? Tell me. Yuan glared at him. Yu Yutong couldn't think of any brilliant plan in such a short time. His handsome face immediately turned red. This old man knows that you usually have some special feelings for Luo Bing. However, seeing that you're still polite, I turned a blind eye to it. I didn't expect that you would disregard the righteousness of the nation for the sake of your personal feelings. Yu Wanting angrily rebuked him. No, Yu Yutong was in a hurry to explain, but suddenly didn't know how to explain. He couldn't help but stare blankly. Enough, old branch master. Since I've already agreed, I naturally won't go back on my word. 14th brother is only concerned about his comradeship. Please don't make things difficult for him, Luo Bing said indifferently with her head lowered. Since that's the case, I won't pursue this matter any further. Jiao Luo, Tai Lai Bing and Tian Hong, follow me to the secret chamber to plan how to deal with that dog thief Song Qing Shu. Yu Wanting called out to the group and walked into the inner chamber. Yu Yutong didn't expect that not only would he fail to rescue his sweetheart from the tiger's den, but he would also need her to speak up for him. He lowered his head and secretly clenched his fists, his expression indiscernible. When the morning sun shone into the room, Song Qing Shu suddenly opened his eyes and stretched his body. His expression immediately became extremely strange. This Joy Zen art was indeed a good thing. If he had played like this in his previous life, he wouldn't have been able to wake up until noon the next day. Moreover, his back would definitely be sore and he would be in low spirits. How could he be as refreshed as he was now? Secretly checking the inner qi in his body, Song Qing Shu's face revealed a trace of joy. He didn't expect that the inner qi of joy would actually grow a little stronger. It should be known that Chu Fian and Zhongling were both virgins, so the yin qi in their bodies was naturally rich and pure. Nanlan was a married woman, but the level of yin qi in her body was actually higher than that of a young girl. Moreover, if his senses weren't wrong, the yin qi in her body had already far exceeded the normal equilibrium level of a woman. If it wasn't for him absorbing a lot of yin qi yesterday, in the near future, her body would probably become weaker and weaker, and finally, she would die. No wonder she often has a worried look on her face, just like Lin Daiyu. Yeah, could it be that Lin Daiyu also died because of the imbalance of yin and yang in her body? Song Qing Shu muttered to himself. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he stared out of the window. Since you're already here, why don't you show yourself? Young master's martial arts seems to have improved by a level. As an elegant voice came, the window was already opened, and a white figure flashed in. Oh, it's the 9th princess. Song Qing Shu smiled and quickly relaxed. Zhu Xiaoyan was about to speak, but suddenly her delicate eyebrows and nose wrinkled a few times. She looked around and asked in confusion, "What's that smell in the room?" Song Qing Shu was stunned for a moment, and then immediately reacted. He smiled awkwardly and said, "I drank too much yesterday and dirted the princess's nose. It's really a sin. But in his heart, he added, the unique smell of a man and a woman after sex, of course, a virgin like you can't distinguish it. After 12 o'clock, the second watch. Chapter 2:12. Really, Zhu Xiaoyi was suspicious. This was clearly not the smell of wine. But seeing that he did not say anything, she did not intend to get to the bottom of it. Yesterday, Hongli entertained Gongzi in the mansion. Did Gongzi see Qing Qing? Song Qing Shu was about to get out of bed and was about to lift the quilt when he suddenly realized that Zhu Xiaoyi was facing him. He hurriedly gestured awkwardly. Zhu Xiaoyi blushed and turned her back. Sure enough, a naive and pure little girl. Although her martial arts is high, she still lacks Jianghu experience. If I have bad intentions and take this opportunity to attack you, you will not be able to escape. Song Qing Shu stared at her back and could not help but think as he put on his clothes. Are you done? Zhu Xiaoyi only heard a rustling sound behind her. Thinking that a strange man was changing clothes, she felt very uncomfortable and asked after a while. Yes, princess, turn around. After fighting all night last night, Song Qing Shu had released all his energy. At this time, he really had no interest in flirting with the girl in front of him. Soon, he put on his clothes neatly without any delay. I saw her yesterday. Song Qing Shu sighed. Unfortunately, she only wants to be her Fujin. There was still a trace of anger in his tone. How is that possible? Zhu Xiaoyi shook her head subconsciously. I know Qing Qing's feelings for Brother Yuan the best. She must have a reason for doing this. Song Qing Shu was annoyed and raised his head to ask, when did the 9th princess arrive in Shengjing? 2 days earlier than you. Previously, I also tried to explore the Bao Prince's mansion at night. Originally, I was quite proud of my lightness skill and thought that it was a piece of cake. I did not expect the mansion to be so heavily guarded. There's not a single gap, so I could only return empty-handed. Zhu Xiaoyi said gloomily. Hong Li, that old pervert, has some skills. Although Fu Qinggan is not a good person, his fighting ability is really good. He planned the mansion like a military camp and built it like an iron bucket. Naturally, Jianghu people can only look at it and sigh. Looking at Zhu Xiaoyi's occasional arrogant expression, Song Qingshu suddenly felt that he was also in the same predicament. It seemed that he was not the only one who suffered. The Manchurian Qing Tatars are full of talented people. It is really not our generation's good fortune. Zhu Ao frowned. She remembered that there were a few famous generals under her father's command, such as Brother Yuan's father, but alas. Hearing her sudden faint sigh, Song Qingshu consoled her. Princess need not worry. On the surface, the Manchurian Qing is indeed full of talented people, but in fact, there are already undercurrents moving in the dark. Great chaos is imminent. Why do you say so? Zhu Ao looked at him expectantly. A hint of hesitation flashed across Song Qingshu's face. I hope that Princess will not reveal what we have said today to Zhang Wuji. Zhu Meng was stunned for a moment before she smiled sweetly and said, I almost forgot that you two don't get along. Don't worry, I will keep it a secret for you. What if he uses his identity as the cult master to force you to say it? Song Qingshu still didn't believe it and continued to ask. Zhu Ao smiled lightly and said, Although I promised Zhang Jiaozhu to be the saintess of the Ming dynasty, I have no subordinate relationship with him. He wants my identity as the princess of the previous dynasty, and I want his power in the Ming dynasty. We each take what we need. It is just a cooperative relationship. But I heard that the Ming dynasty's rules require the saintess to remain unmarried for life. Princess, why do you want to be in such a position where you can understand human nature? Song Qingshu said gloomily. In the original work, Zhu Ao's beauty was much better than Xia Qingqing's. Now that Xia Qingqing had married, she had a mature and charming temperament, which was why her charm was comparable to Agio's. But in terms of appearance, she was still no match for Agio. Such a great beauty who could cause the downfall of a city to remain unmarried for life was simply the bad news for all the men in the world. Since his death, what difference does it make if I marry or not? What does it matter if I become the saintess? Zhu Ao said in an inaudible voice, and a trace of sadness appeared in her eyes. Although his voice was soft, Song Qingshu still heard every single word. He could not help but be filled with jealousy towards the already dead Yuan Qingji. Yuan Datu, what kind of charm do you have to actually make two outstanding women like these fall head over heels for you? Ninth Princess, although the Ming dynasty is powerful, they are far away in the western region. If they want to fight their way to the Qing dynasty, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to see it even when you are old. Is it really okay for you to join them? Song Qingshu said. I also have a headache over this problem, but there is no better choice than the Ming dynasty in the world. With a mischievous smile on his face, Zhu Yui counted with his fingers. The organization that fought against the Qing dynasty and restored the Ming dynasty in the Manchurian Qing dynasty is too short-sighted. As for the Golden Snake Camp, at the mention of the Golden Snake Camp, Zhu Yui's face flushed and then turned pale. At that time, although the Golden Snake Camp was thriving, I would never join it. Then there is the Song Kingdom in the south. Although there are many capable people and there is no lack of famous officials and generals, the emperor is muddle-headed and treacherous officials are in charge. There are also all kinds of bad rules. If I go there as a woman, I think I can only serve my husband and teach my children. Just like me. Song Qingshu suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. That day, he was also worried that the Song Kingdom was declining and there was really no platform for him to display his abilities. Guojing was so capable, but he only helped LV Wanhuan defend Xianyang. The court only rewarded him with a useless position. His kung fu was not as good as Guojing's, and his reputation was not as good. At most, he would be sent to some place in Sichuan to fight against the Mongols. That was not what he wanted. Just like you. Zhu Ao's expression was strange. She was a little angry. This guy took advantage of me. How can you serve your husband and teach your children? Go on, ninth young lady. Song Qingshu always felt that calling her ninth princess was too distant, so he secretly changed it to ninth young lady. As expected, she did not notice the difference. Zhu Ao rolled her eyes and continued. As a dignified descendant of the Ming dynasty, I naturally can't go to barbarian places like Jin, Liao, and Xixia, not to mention the more cruel Mongols. As for Tubo and Dali, there is no need to mention them. After thinking about it, only Zhang Jiaozhu's Ming dynasty is more reliable. Ninth young lady, have you considered job hopping? Song Qingshu noticed the helplessness in her voice and was immediately overjoyed. Job hopping? What do you mean by job hopping? Zhu Ao's expression changed slightly. The Zhu family had always been taboo to talk about pigs among the people. Hearing him saying job hopping, a fat little sow automatically appeared in her mind, trying to stretch out its trotters and jump from side to side of the pigsty. It's a slip of the tongue. It means to change my allegiance. Song Qingshu hurriedly corrected her. Change my allegiance? To where? Zhu Ao's expression was blank. I'm just here. Song Qingshu held his head high and was very excited at the thought of the possibility of poaching Zhang Wuji. Zhu Ao's original intention was to laugh out loud, but her royal demeanor made her restrain herself in time. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, If I remember correctly, you are still working for Kangxi. If I come to you, doesn't it mean that I'm working for Kangxi? It's true that I'm working for Kangxi, but it's wrong to say that I'm working for him. Recently, I'm also going to job hopping. Will you work for me? Song Qingshu looked at her expectantly. Work for you? Zhu Ao's forehead was full of black lines. She finally guessed what he meant, so she didn't misunderstand that he was using dirty words. When you have your own foundation, let's talk about this problem. Zhu Ao's elegance declined. After several encounters, she had already known that Song Qingshu was not loyal to the Qing dynasty, so she was not surprised that he tried to recruit her. Okay, Song Qingshu understood that without anything, it was impossible to move the other party. However, he could leave a seed in the other party's heart. If you work with me, I'll help you unify the various anti-Qing organizations. Although these organizations are ambitious but not capable, they are all hot-blooded. You are the princess of the Ming dynasty, so I think you have some influence. If these organizations are led by you, do you think they will still be so scattered? Don't talk about working for me anymore. It sounds bad. Zhu Ao's face flashed with a trace of redness, and she said angrily, As for you wanting to unify all the anti-Qing organizations, I'm afraid it's wishful thinking. Although I have the royal blood, I'm just a princess, not a prince. Those organizations have their own princes, so how can they listen to me? A princess? Song Qingshu was stunned and finally understood how terrible the language gap was. Fortunately, she was not so angry, so he hurriedly explained, When the time comes, I have my own brilliant plan, and I'll solve this problem for you. Zhu Ao's eyes widened in surprise, and she didn't understand why he said this so easily. Do you admire me a little? After a while, Song Qingshu's flippant nature was exposed again. Humph, let's talk about all this after you have your own foundation. It's useless to talk about it now. Zhu Ao's ignored him and directly ended the topic. You better talk about why the chaos of the Qing dynasty is coming. Song Qingshu replied and explained, Presumably you also know that in the Manchurian Qing dynasty, Kangxi, Hongli, and Wu Sangui are now in a three-legged tripod. Each one of them wants to destroy the other two forces so that they can monopolize the 10,000 li of rivers and mountains. Originally, because of the two foreign enemies, Mongolia and Liao, the three of them could still reluctantly unite against the foreign enemies. But recently a series of events have occurred. Hongli and Wu Sangui's alliance has been declared broken. The balance of power has been broken. Moreover, Wei Xiaobao's words last time to instigate Blood Knife Ancestor seem to be effective. Now, Mongolia has deliberately slowed down the pace of attacking Liaodong so that Hongli can free up his hands. Kangxi is also eyeing the capital covetously. Now is the calm before the storm. No, I can't let Qingqing take the risk. Zhu Ao's also felt the critical situation. She looked at Song Qingshu and said, I plan to rescue Qingqing from Shengjing. Are you willing to help me? Rescue her from Shengjing? Song Qingshu was a little tempted, but he quickly shook his head. But she has made up her mind. She plans to use Hongli to deal with Kanshi. I'm afraid she won't be willing to go with us. Zhu Ao's expression froze. It's not clear who will be the winner between Hongli and Kanshi. It's really unwise for Qingqing to do this. I can't let her sink deeper. If she doesn't want to go, we'll force her to go. Chapter 213. It's a bit tricky. Zhu Yinqi fell in a deep thought. Did you come to Shengjing alone this time? Song Qingshu asked. The people from the Ming dynasty wanted to protect me, but I didn't agree and left them at Blackwood Cliff. Zhu Yinqi answered. He's all alone. This is going to be difficult. It looks like directly snatching him from the king's mansion won't work. I'll have to outsmart him. Song Qingshu paced back and forth, his mind in chaos. Let's think of a way on our own first. When we have some ideas, we can discuss it together. Zhu Yinqi said after a moment of silence. Song Qingshu sensed that she wanted to leave, so he quickly asked, Where do you live? How can I contact you? Zhu Yinqi hesitated for a moment, but she still didn't tell him where she lived. She pointed to the yard outside and said, If you want to find me, just hang a yellow silk on the tree in the yard, and I will come and find you. Not long after Zhu Yinqi left, Zhang Kengyan hurriedly ran in and said with a strange expression, The girl from last night came again. Song Qingshu's heart moved. He asked Zhang Kengyan to invite her in. Watching the beautiful Nanlan walk into the room, a proud smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. What are you smiling at? Nanlan felt uncomfortable being stared at by him. Looking at Mrs. Tian's rosy and beautiful face, I feel proud and fulfilled. Of course, I want to smile, Song Qingshu answered. What are you proud of? Nanlan suddenly came to her senses. She blushed and spat. Now you know how to call me Mrs. Tian. I don't know who was pretending to be crazy last night. It's all for the sake of kissing my wife. Song Qingshu reached out his hand to touch her face, but Nanlan's expression changed, and she took a few steps back. I've already given you what you wanted. I hope you can keep your promise and help me save Gueno. Nanlan's expression was very complicated. Don't worry, I'm not a heartless person. Song Qingshu shook his head. Do you know where Tian Gueno is being held? Nanlan was pondering over the meaning of his words and subconsciously replied, He was originally locked up in the city's prison, but recently, I don't know where he's been locked up. I've asked many people, but no one is willing to tell me. Yesterday, I obtained news that Gueno seemed to have suffered an extremely inhumane punishment. I was worried about his life, yet I didn't know exactly what punishment it was, so That's why you were so eager to save your husband and let me take advantage of you. Looking at Nanlan's angry expression, Song Qingshu quickly said, Don't worry, I will immediately send someone to investigate and rescue him. Many thanks, young master. The moment Nanlan said this, she immediately froze. She had already given up her innocence. Was there still a need to thank him? Sure enough, Song Qingshu laughed when he heard this. You don't have to thank me. Last night was the deposit. Madam will pay me the other half after the matter is done. Is that okay? Last night wasn't enough? Nanlan's legs still trembled when she recalled the scene last night, and her cheeks blushed. Although she had been married for many years and had even given birth to a child, even if she added up all the children she had in the past few years, it still couldn't compare to last night's nonsense. Of course it wasn't enough. Even if I stayed with Madam every day, it still wouldn't be enough. Song Qingshu was concerned about the rich extreme yin qi in her body. It would be too much of a waste to waste it. Besides, although Nanlan's brain was a little shallow from the point of view of a lover, she was a woman among women. Last night, she had already enjoyed everything. The gentleness that was as gentle as water could soften a well-tempered steel. Naturally, she wanted more. Although Nanlan was a little embarrassed and angry, when she heard his sincere praise and the infatuated expression on his face, she still felt a little happy in her heart. However, in the end, she couldn't bring herself to agree to such an absurd request. She could only say something specious. Let's talk about it after you rescue Guénon. All right. Looking at the dignified young lady before him, who was a little angry, a little bashful, and a little charming, and there was even a hint of intense lust between her brows, Song Qing-shu felt extremely delighted. Could it be that Madame has returned for this matter? Otherwise, why do you think I came back to look for you? Even though Nan Lan had only casually rolled her eyes at him, the amorous expression on her face still left Song Qing-shu in awe. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "A day as husband and wife means 100 days of devotion. I thought that Madame had specially come to reminisce about the past on account of last night's kindness." Despicable. Even though Nan Lan said those words, she couldn't bring out the slightest bit of anger in her heart. Instead, she felt a taboo excitement. Recalling how she had been tormented by him last night, she hurriedly left the moment she managed to escape his clutches. Only when she returned to the residence did she realize that she hadn't told him about her husband's matter. She tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. In the end, she decided to make another trip here. "Madam, if you have time in the future, feel free to visit the Four Quarters Embassy," Song Qing-shu said. Nan Lan hurriedly shook her head. "I won't be coming here again." With that said, she walked out. When she reached the door of the room, she paused. She didn't turn around and only said softly, "If young master has news of Guénon, you can come to this concubine's residence." After saying those words, her ears turned red. She couldn't understand why she would be so daring. She hurriedly left, as though she was fleeing. Song Qing-shu was taken aback. He couldn't hold back the smile on his face any longer and burst into laughter. Hearing his laughter, Nan Lan ran even faster. "Zhang Kanyan, Zhao Qi-xian, take your subordinates and search around the capital. Find out where a person named Tian Guénon is being held. He is the sect master of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Previously, he was an expert of the king's mansion. He should be able to find some clues. If necessary, contact the imperial court spies in Shengjing." After Nan Lan left, Song Qing-shu called the two of them in and instructed them. "Yes, we will do our best." The two of them agreed and took their leave. "I remember now. That woman seems to be Tian Guénon's wife." When the two of them felt that they were far enough away from Song Qing-shu, they began to whisper to each other. "Isn't that so? From the looks of it, she is here to beg Lord Song to save her husband. Hee. Lord Song is truly fortunate to be able to play with such a beauty. Look at that woman. When she walks, the shape of her legs seems to have changed. Our Lord Song is truly unfathomable." His tone was filled with envy. "If I had the chance to play with such a beautiful woman, I would be satisfied if I didn't make her unable to get off the bed. Keep bragging. Are you really that amazing? Hee. You are exaggerating. If that bastard Tian Guénon knew that he was only saved because of his wife's body, do you think he would still be willing to be saved? Why wouldn't he be willing? Compared to his own life, what is his wife's body worth? In any case, she is not a virgin. She can wash herself clean. Brother Zhang, you are truly knowledgeable." Song Qing-shu was meditating in his room. He felt that his limbs and bones were all at ease. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked outside the door. "What is it?" "Reporting to Lord. Lord Zhang from Shengjing has sent someone to invite Lord to his mansion for a banquet." A guard replied. "Lord Zhang? Which Lord Zhang?" Song Qing-shu asked curiously. Did he know any official with the surname Zhang here? "It is the left commander of Shengjing's valiant cavalry battalion, Lord Zhang Zhaozhong." The guard replied. "Zhang Zhaozhong?" Song Qing-shu remembered how Zhang Zhaozhong spoke up for him at the banquet last night. Zhang Zhaozhong was even willing to lend him his sword to fight against the enemy. Zhang Zhaozhong was a far cry from the sinister and ruthless villain in his impression. "Okay, I will go immediately." Song Qing-shu remembered that he owed him a favor during the banquet last night. If he did not go, he was afraid that he would make an enemy out of thin air. It was really unwise. In addition, he was curious about what Zhang Zhaozhong wanted to say to him. Secondly, he wanted to take the opportunity to inquire about the information of Bao Prince's residence. He wanted to see if he could find any inspiration to think of a way to save Xia Qingqing. When Song Qingshu followed the housekeeper of Zhang Zhaozhong's mansion to the Zhang mansion, a window on the street was slightly opened. A beautiful young woman silently watched his figure and said with a faint smile, "Is this the Song Qingshu who once injured the leader? I see that he looks so weak. I'm afraid he looks more like a scholar than a master." This beautiful woman looked to be only 23 or 24 years old. When she smiled slightly, she was overflowing with charm and was incomparably gorgeous. Her voice was crisp and charming. It was extremely pleasant to listen to. However, the few men behind her seemed to turn a blind eye to her and turned a deaf ear to her. They lowered their eyebrows and looked submissive. They had a respectful look and did not dare to show a trace of strange expression. If Song Qingshu saw this, he would definitely sigh and say, "Such a beauty in front of you, but you don't know how to appreciate it. It's simply a reckless waste of God's gifts." "Madam, according to the report from the brothers in the cult, yesterday he made Hong Li's #1 expert, True Jade, admit defeat the moment he made a move. I'm afraid his martial arts is even higher than what the leader saw that day." A man around 40 years old dressed like a scholar opened his mouth and said, "Oh." The beautiful woman sank into deep thought. "True Jade, that ox knows, although is greedy and lecherous, his martial arts are indeed not bad. Even if the leader's martial arts are higher than his, I'm afraid there's still a limit. Is that Song Qingshu's martial arts really that high?" There was a trace of fear in her voice. In fact, this was completely a beautiful misunderstanding. Song Qingshu just happened to be proficient in the 5-mountain sword technique, and True Jade happened to use the Mount Tai sword technique. Naturally, he was restrained everywhere. In fact, with his martial arts, if he didn't use the Mount Tai sword technique, he would have no problem fighting for 100 or 80 moves. Previously, Song Qingshu had defeated the head of the Zhenwu Monastery, Taoist Chong Su, and the head of the 5 Mountains Alliance, Zhuo Linshan, with one sword strike. Furthermore, he had single-handedly injured the heads of the Red Flower Society in the Imperial Palace. He had faintly gained the reputation of being the #1 expert of the Qing court. However, this was too illusory in the end. For this group of people, they didn't have a direct impression of him. Instead, it wasn't as shocking as when the leader was once injured by him. Now that they saw True Jade, who had run amok in Liaodong for more than 10 years, was unexpectedly defeated by him so easily, they couldn't help but overestimate Song Qingshu's strength. The room fell into a moment of silence. The scholar from earlier opened his mouth and said, "Madam, there's no need to worry. We're only here to investigate what intentions Hong Li has towards our cult. There shouldn't be any conflict of interest with him." Chapter 2:14. So what if there's a conflict? With the strength of you and me, we don't necessarily need to be afraid of that Song Qingshu. Fin Tuchuo snorted coldly. Although the poison of the leopard embryo tendon altering pill flared up several years ago, causing his body to become short and fat, leaving only 70 to 80% of his power, he was still a top expert in the Divine Dragon cult. Other than the cult leader Hong Antong and the cult leader's wife who rarely made a move, the martial arts of the two of them were the highest in the cult. Even among the cult's respected 5 dragon envoys, other than the Blue Dragon envoy, Su Xueding, the other people's martial arts were nothing in his eyes. In his opinion, no matter how high Song Qingshu's martial arts were, he was still only a young man. This time the Divine Dragon cult had sent many experts, so naturally there was no need to underestimate the other. Fin Tuchuo, don't forget the purpose of our trip. Don't complicate matters. Su Quan snorted coldly. Everyone present was silent. The words viper and scorpion beauty flashed through their minds. Although the cult leader's wife was extremely charming, everyone knew that she was vicious and merciless. In recent years, in order to get rid of dissidents, she had found reasons to kill many of the cult's old brothers. In the hearts of the Divine Dragon cult's people, Hong Antong was admittedly terrifying, but this woman was not far off. Only Fin Tucho's heart flashed with a hint of fierceness. This time I must find a chance to kill Fu Kangon and avenge Janning. Originally, Janning was the daughter she secretly gave birth to with the fake Empress Dowager Mao Dongzhu. When he found out that Janning was raped by Fu Kangan at Shanghai Pass and committed suicide because she could not bear the humiliation, he made up his mind that even if he had to perish together, he must kill Fu Kangan. Therefore, this time when the cult sent experts to Shengjing, he was more proactive than anyone else. Of course, no one in the cult knew of his relationship with Janning, so no one noticed his abnormality. "Madam, are we not going to investigate the 42-chapter sutra?" Lu Gaoxian asked cautiously. "Naturally, I have to investigate. I am determined to obtain the 42-chapter sutra of the upright white flag in Hong Li's hands. However, the most important task is to first investigate the conspiracy Hong Li has against our divine dragon cult." Looking at Song Qingshu's back, Su Quan had a pensive look on her face. Previously, Wei Xiaobao brought back 2 sutras, but I don't know where the rest of the sutras are. I think that little rascal might have hidden 1 or 2. I heard that Song Qingshu single-handedly arranged his funeral. Could it be? While the Shunlong Jiao people were secretly spying on Song Qingshu, they did not expect that their every move had already fallen into the eyes of another group. "Lord Su, Song Qingshu doesn't have any guards by his side right now. Should we make a move?" The person who spoke was a young man with a noble and extraordinary bearing. "I don't think it's appropriate. At this time, the Shunlong Jiao people are also nearby. We can't figure out their thoughts. If they interfere, I'm afraid we'll fail." A young girl in a tight outfit said with a frown. Whether it was her tall figure or those perfectly round and slender legs, they all showed how youthful and alluring their master was. Different from the Jiangnan women who were as gentle as water, her entire body revealed the wild beauty of the northern women who were full of vitality. The person they respectfully faced was a middle-aged man wearing a ghost mask. Although they couldn't see his face, the white hair on his temples made him feel like he was in a dangerous situation. Presumably, when he was young, he must have been a handsome man. Xian, you two are the most outstanding experts of our great Liao royal family's younger generation. It's just that your Jianghu experience is still shallow. Bringing you two to Shengjing this time was not without the intention of training you two." The ghost-masked man stood up from the couch. Looking at the distant Song Qingshu, he shook his head. "The Shunlong Jiao people are still secondary. Our goal is to shift the blame to Hong Li. If we make a move now, Hong Li will naturally be able to push the blame away. We won't be able to achieve the situation we want." It turned out that the Liao Southern Courtyard's King Xiaofeng was leading the army to fight with the Qing Kingdom's Ping, Shiwang Wu Sangui. Although Wu Sangui was continuously losing ground, he was still a famous general. Although he suffered many defeats, he was not seriously injured. In order to cooperate with Xiaofeng, the Liao royal court sent 3 experts to secretly sneak into Shengjing. They intended to assassinate Kangshi's imperial envoy minister and shift the blame to Bao Prince Hong Li. This made the conflict between the two completely public, making it impossible for them to take care of Wu Sangui. Among the 3, the young man was Liao East Dan King's Prince Yeluqi. The young girl was Cheng and Princess Yelunancian. Both of them were the top young experts of the royal family. As for this ghost-masked man, he was Liao's most mysterious organization, the Great Secret Intelligence Bureau. In Darren Su's opinion, when should we make our move? Yelunancian subconsciously didn't like this mysterious man in front of her. The Great Secret Intelligence Bureau was in charge of the royal family secrets. Starting from the first Great Secret Intelligence Bureau, Yelu Xiugu, every Great Secret Intelligence Bureau was a member of the Yelu royal family. She didn't know why this Great Secret Intelligence Bureau had become a Han. Even the members of the royal family, other than knowing that his name was Su Yin and that his martial arts were unfathomable, didn't know anything about his background. One word, wait. Su Yin stood with his hands behind his back, faintly emitting the aura of a master. I wonder if Darren Su or the Southern Courtyard's Great Secret Intelligence Bureau's martial arts are better. Feeling his aura, Yeluqi thought to himself. The Southern Courtyard's Great Secret Intelligence Bureau's King Xiaofeng had helped the Liao Emperor Yelu Hongji quell the Chu King's rebellion. Not only did his name shake the world, he was also viewed as a hero by everyone in Liao. Yaluqi was no exception. But no matter how high Xiao Feng's martial arts were, he was still a member of the Empress Xiao clan. As a member of the royal family, Yaluqi naturally hoped that the royal family could produce an expert that could rival him. Different from Yalu Nanxian, he knew that the previous emperor was not a muddle-headed person. For Su Yin to be in charge of the Great Secret Intelligence Bureau, he was definitely a member of the royal family. But he didn't know why his name was a Han. Song Qingshu naturally didn't know that there were so many people plotting against him in the dark. Right now, his head was aching about how to save Xia Qingqing and Tian Guanong, and he was also a bit puzzled by Zhang Zhaozhong's sudden goodwill. I was worried that Darren Song was busy and didn't have time to come. Zhang Zhaozhong was already waiting at the door. As soon as he saw Song Qingshu, he warmly welcomed him into the room. "Where's the opera troupe? Quickly start the performance." Zhang Zhaozhong looked at the housekeeper and ordered. Song Qingshu was startled. Could it be that there was an axe hidden in the opera? Once the falling of the cup was the signal, then there would be danger on all sides? Countless assassins would swarm out. He secretly calmed himself down and prepared himself. Zhang Zhaozhong was also an expert. Naturally, he noticed a change in him. He smiled and said, "Darren Song is skilled and bold. I can't believe you dared to attend the banquet alone. This lowly official admires you." "What are you talking about, Sir Zhang? Sir is serving under Prince Bao, while I am serving in the palace. Technically speaking, we are both serving the imperial court. Coming to your residence is just a visit between colleagues. How can it be considered as having guts?" Song Qingshu replied, "Darren Song is right. As Hong Li's confidant, how could Zhang Zhaozhong not know about the tense relationship between Hong Li and Kangxi?" Zhang Zhaozhong couldn't help but laugh awkwardly. This lowly official guessed that Darren must be very busy with work and must be very tired. So I specially invited the most popular opera troupe in Shengjing. "Darren, why don't you relax a little? I've seen all kinds of blockbusters in my previous life. What's so good about a mere opera troupe?" Song Qingshu immediately lost interest. He really couldn't understand why the ancients liked to watch opera so much. He couldn't help but feel a great deal of sympathy. What a barren spiritual world. However, he didn't know what Zhang Zhaozhong's goal was, and it wasn't appropriate for him to disobey him. All he could do was deal with the ever-changing situation and watch the show with him. "What do you think of the woman on the stage, Darren Song?" Song Qingshu had no interest in watching opera. He casually glanced at her and then began to daydream. After an unknown amount of time, he suddenly heard Zhang Zhaozhong's voice. He couldn't help but look up. Only then did Song Qingshu clearly see the woman Zhang Zhaozhong mentioned. She was wearing a light yellow gown and a light green skirt. She was about 21 or 22 years old and had outstanding looks. Her skin was fair and tender, and she was quite charming. He subconsciously sighed and said, "It's a pity that such a beautiful person is wandering in the world of prostitution. Darren Song, you've misunderstood. She's not a prostitute. She's just a troupe girl who sells herself everywhere." However, since Darren has tender feelings for the fairer sex, this lowly official naturally has the intention to help you. "Someone, invite Lady Sang over." Zhang Zhaozhong revealed a hint of a smile. Sure enough, all men were lustful. He lived in the bustling capital, so he was definitely used to seeing prostitutes. It was naturally refreshing to see a woman wandering the streets like this. Song Qingshu realized that he had misunderstood. He was just about to explain, but decided against it after some thought. Not long after, the woman leisurely walked over and stood before the two of them. "What instructions do you have for me, Darren? I've long heard of Lady Sang's great name. Now that I've met you today, you truly are extraordinary. Would Lady Sang be willing to tell me your name?" Zhang Zhaozhong teased. Unexpectedly, the other party didn't have the bashfulness of a typical girl. Instead, she replied in a natural and unrestrained manner. "I've made a fool of myself in front of you. My surname is Sang, and my name is Feihong." "Sang Feihong?" Song Qingshu was stunned. His mind was in a daze. That name sounds familiar. Did it appear in the book and sword feud, or the flying fox of the snowy mountains? "Sigh, I can't remember." "You live up to your name. Zhang Zhaozhong muttered to himself. He raised his head and asked, Lady Sang, are you tired from running about everywhere? This servant relies on this trade to make a living. I dare not think it's tiring. Although Sang Fei Hong was smiling, she couldn't hide her exhaustion. Lady Sang, you're a girl. Surely you can't wander the streets for the rest of your life? It just so happens that this Lord Song was filled with admiration when he saw you. This official can see that you're no longer young. Why don't you become Lord Song's concubine? Lord Song is still young, but he's already the deputy chief of the Imperial Guard, a second-rank official. As the saying goes, it's better to be the concubine of a hero than the wife of a mediocre man. Becoming Lord Song's concubine shouldn't be a disgrace to you. Zhang Zhaozhong chuckled. Song Qingshu didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this, but he wasn't in a hurry to retort. Instead, he curiously watched Sang Fei Hong's reaction. Sure enough, Sang Fei Hong's expression changed when she heard Zhang Zhaozhong's words. Over the years, she had encountered many such unwritten rules, but this was the first time she had encountered one so blatantly and directly. She couldn't help but reply in a low voice, My lord must be joking. This servant is free and unfettered in the streets. I have no plans to marry for now. Joking? Zhang Zhaozhong's expression turned cold. Who's joking with you? Chapter 215. Song Qingshu's heart was as clear as a mirror. Zhang Zhaozhong was obviously making things difficult for the other party on purpose. Song Qingshu was merely being used by Zhang Zhaozhong. Other than feeling displeased, she couldn't help but feel a little strange. Zhang Zhaozhong was a dignified officer of the Valiant Cavalry Battalion. Why would he target a prostitute? A trace of anger flashed across Sang Fei Hong's face. She reprimanded, in broad daylight, Is Lord Zhang trying to put on a show of kidnapping a commoner girl? Sisters, pack your things. Let's go. Finished speaking, she turned around and beckoned the troop to pack up and leave. You want to leave? Zhang Zhaozhong laughed coldly. With a leap, he blocked her path. I've long heard of Lord Zhang's reputation as the judge of Firehand. May I be so bold as to ask for your guidance? Sang Fei Hong didn't expect the other party to be so shameless. She knew that there was no way she could be kind today. She steeled her heart and directly attacked first. She then said to her subordinates, All of you, leave first. She had already calculated in her heart. Her lightness kung fu had never been weak. Depending on the situation, it would be easy for her to choose whether to fight or flee. On the other hand, if her subordinates were to be held back by Zhang Zhaozhong to threaten her, then she would be in a difficult position. Song Qingshu didn't expect such a petite woman to be so skilled in martial arts. Her attacks were like a mandarin duck's crown on its head, and her kicks were like a mandarin duck's tail on its tail. Most of her martial arts seemed to be focused on her legs. Her kicks and kicks were linked tightly together. The four high and low rings combined into one, and the left and right shadows followed each other. What a good pair of legs! Zhang Zhaozhong's eyes lit up. His original intention was to attack Sang Fei Hong. Naturally, he didn't care that the rest of the troop had left. Seeing the other party attacking from all directions like butterflies, he hurriedly raised his palms to meet her. The two of them fought for a dozen rounds, and Song Qingshu could see clearly that although Sang Fei Hong's leg technique was exquisite, she was weak as a woman. After taking a few hits from Zhang Zhaozhong's palms, a look of pain flashed across her face. After that, she switched to a more fanciful fighting style. Unless it was absolutely necessary, she would not clash head-on with Zhang Zhaozhong. If not because Zhang Zhaozhong did not want to seriously injure her, Sang Fei Hong would have slipped and been captured early on. Song Qingshu let out a long laugh. Zhang Daren's martial art seems to belong to Wudong Pai. It just so happens that I know a thing or two about the Tiger Claw hand. Since I am eager to learn something, why don't we exchange some pointers? Finished speaking, without waiting for Zhang Zhaozhong's reply, Song Qingshu made the stance of Wudong's Tiger Claw hand and stood between the two men. Sang Fei Hong gradually fell into a disadvantageous position and was feeling anxious. When she saw Zhang Zhaozhong suddenly standing in front of her with his left hand behind his back, secretly making a gesture for her to escape. She immediately understood and quickly took the opportunity to jump out of the courtyard wall. Zhang Zhaozhong was stunned, but immediately understood that Song Qingshu was deliberately letting Sang Feihong escape. However, he was not angry. Instead, he smiled and said, "Lord Song is a peerless master of the present age. To be able to exchange blows with you, I dare not disobey." Finished speaking, he also made the stance of the tiger claw hand and met Zhang Zhaozhong's attack. The two of them exchanged blows, tiger claw hand against tiger claw hand, Wudong soft palm against Wudong soft palm. After dozens of moves, both of them deeply admired each other's attainments. No more fighting, no more fighting. How could I not know that Lord Song is merciful? Zhang Zhaozhong laughed loudly and jumped out of the ring. Chapter 214, Brothers in Hardship, Lord Zhang's Wudong Kung Fu. I wonder which branch of the Wudong 5 temples your master is from? Song Qingshu asked in confusion. He naturally knew that Zhang Zhaozhong was not a direct descendant of the Purple Cloud Palace. Although there were many branches of the Wudong sect, what Zhang Zhaozhong learned was the orthodox Xianmen of the Wudong sect. Naturally, it was not something that could be taught by those small branches. This humble senior brother is the head of the Heavenly Purity Monastery, Taoist Ma Zhen. Zhang Zhaozhong did not show much respect when he mentioned his senior brother. Ah, so is Taoist Ma Zhen. In terms of seniority, Lord Zhang is my martial uncle, Song Qingshu said gloomily. Zhang Zhaozhong laughed and said, "As the saying goes, those who reach first come first. With your martial arts skills, it is already a blessing for me to be able to speak to you as an equal. Besides, I have long been expelled by my senior brother, so I cannot be considered as a member of the Wudong sect." "Oh." Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows and said, "In that case, we are indeed fated. We are both traitors of the Wudong sect." Then he could not help but laugh. Zhang Zhaozhong obviously did not take the Wudong sect seriously. He said with a smile, "Do you know why I took the initiative to lend you my sword at the banquet last night? Could it be because I'm also a traitor of the Wudong sect?" Song Qingshu said with a strange smile. Zhang Zhaozhong nodded and said, "That's right. At first, although Lord Song's martial arts skills are high, and although I admire you, I do not feel close to you. Instead, when I found out later that Lord Song is also from the Wudong sect, I suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. This identity has indeed troubled me for a long time. It is rare to meet a brother in hardship," Song Qingshu said as he put his arm around Zhang Zhaozhong's shoulder. "Let's not call each other Lord Song or Lord Zhang. From now on, I will call you Big Brother Zhang, and you call me Brother Song. Wouldn't that be better?" Song Qingshu subconsciously thought of Wei Xiaobao. He had learned this skill of calling each other brothers from him. The other party's official rank was much higher than his. After a moment of surprise, Zhang Zhaozhong said with great joy, "I dare not disobey." He hastily ordered his subordinates to prepare wine and dishes. The two of them chatted while drinking. First, they talked about the Wudong sect and the experts of the Jianghu. Finally, Song Qingshu intentionally or unintentionally led the topic to the Bao Prince's mansion. Zhang Zhaozhong was slightly tipsy. He said, "Bao Prince has been gathering experts from all over the world for the past few years. Although there are no Grandmaster-level experts, he has more or less gathered many capable people. I'm sure you've seen that true Jade Child. Although he was easily defeated by you, his martial arts are truly extraordinary. In the past, he was able to fight the Golden Snake King, Yuan Qingji, to a draw." A trace of doubt flashed through his eyes as he said this. Song Qingshu understood. Obviously, the other party did not understand how Yu Zhenzi could be defeated so miserably with his martial arts skills. Song Qingshu naturally did not need to clarify the matter. He only smiled and listened to the other party continue. "Next is me. My martial arts skills are passable. In the entire prince's mansion, apart from Yu Zhenzi, my martial arts skills are the highest." Zhang Zhaozhong burped and continued. "However, there are still a few experts who are at the same level as us. For example, that Golden Claw Iron Hook Baizhen. His Eagle Claw art is extremely fierce and ruthless. Chief Sai of the prince's mansion cultivates both internal and external energy. He is the #1 expert in the mansion. In addition, there are also Hai Lanbai and Dabu. Both of them have obtained the title Bachelor. Their martial arts skills are also not bad. As for the other so-called experts, naturally, they are not worthy of Brother Song's discerning eyes. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He pretended to casually ask, "How is the martial arts of the heavenly dragon sex Tian Gueno? I heard that he is also one of the experts under Bao Prince's command." Tian Gueno? Zhang Xiaozhong chuckled. His martial arts skills are indeed passable. However, some time ago, he offended the prince for some reason. He was captured by the prince and tortured daily. I am afraid that in the future, his name will be removed from the prince's mansion. Tian Guenong is imprisoned in Bao Prince's mansion. Song Qingshu frowned. Although he had guessed it before, now that it was confirmed, he still felt that it was a little tricky. However, on second thought, if he wanted to save Xia Qingqing, even if Bao Prince's mansion was a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, he would still have to venture into it. Saving one more Tian Guenong was not a big deal. It's a pity that his wife, who is famous throughout the capital for her beauty, will probably have to live alone in the future. Zhang Xiaozhong's face showed a hint of schadenfreude. Is his wife very beautiful? Song Qingshu asked, even though he already knew the answer. She's more than beautiful. You don't know how many of us don't drool at the thought of his beautiful wife behind his back. This time, when Tian Guenong was in trouble, everyone thought that there was a chance. Who knew that martial fu? Naturally, we did not dare to act rashly. Zhang Xiaozhong's face was instantly filled with regret. Lord Song, you can visit the Tian residence when you have time. You will know that what I said is true. If that's the case, I really want to see it for myself. Song Qingshu snickered in his heart. Not just to see, I have played with every inch of her skin. Brother Song, it's normal for you to be young and promiscuous. Seeing the gleam in his eyes, Zhang Xiaozhong felt that it was necessary to remind him. Just now, you can touch women like Sang Fei Hong as you please. But as for Madame Tian, you better keep an eye on her. Sooner or later, she will be Master Fu's. It's not wise to offend him for a woman. Thank you for the reminder, Brother Zhang. Come, let me toast you. Song Qingshu put down his wine cup and asked in confusion. Just now, I saw that you seem to be deliberately targeting Sang Fei Hong. It's all because His Highness felt that there are many unfamiliar Jianghu faces in Shengjing recently and specially sent me to investigate. Sang Fei Hong, don't be fooled by her young age and delicate appearance. She is the famous sect leader of the Five Lakes sect, Zhang Xiaozhong explained. The Five Lakes sect? Song Qingshu was in charge of the Sticky Branch, so naturally, he had a general understanding of the sects within the Manchurian Qing. Aren't they all Jianghu prostitutes? How could they be a threat to Prince Bao? Zhang Xiaozhong smiled sheepishly and said, I just wanted to give you a greeting gift. I didn't know that you have tender feelings for the fairer sex and deliberately let her go. Song Qingshu was also a little embarrassed. He looked awkward and said, You've seen through me. It's no big deal. Why are we still talking about this? Come, let's drink, let's drink. Zhang Xiaozhong really did not take this matter to heart. Today, Sang Fei Hong had left. Tomorrow, Zi Fei Hong. As long as he had power in his hands, there was no need to worry about not having women. Moreover, he could use this opportunity to befriend Song Qingshu, which would bring him endless benefits in the future. Song Qingshu suddenly remembered something and reminded him in a low voice, Brother Zhang, I'm sure you understand the relationship between Prince Bao and His Majesty. You and I are very close now. If we were to fall into the eyes of those with ulterior motives, I'm afraid it would be disadvantageous to you, brother. A hint of warmth flashed through Zhang Xiaozhong's heart. He lowered his voice and said bluntly, Brother Song treats me with sincerity, so naturally, I won't hide it from you. I took the initiative to invite you today because His Royal Highness instructed me to... What? Song Qingshu was shocked. Could this be some kind of trap? Don't worry, His Royal Highness only wanted me to build a good relationship with you. He said that I might be able to find out some information in the future, Zhang Xiaozhong said with a smile. But you and I have a relationship with the Wudong sect, so naturally I won't harm you. Song Qing-shu forced a smile, but the doubts in his heart had not been dispelled. In the original work, Zhang Xiaozhong's greed and viciousness had left a deep impression on him. Zhang Xiaozhong could even kill his own senior brother. So how could he really open his heart to Zhang Xiaozhong, who only had 7 or 8 layers of relationship with him? At this moment, the sound of porcelain breaking echoed from the backyard. Even though it was far away, both of them were martial arts masters, so naturally they could hear it clearly. Very soon, a servant ran over. "Master, young lady is throwing a tantrum again." Chapter 2:16. Miss. Song Qing-shu was puzzled. Did Zhang Xiaozhong have a daughter? There was no mention of it in the original novel. Then there were 2 more bangs. Zhang Xiaozhong felt his heart ache. As he ran into the inner chamber, he muttered to himself, "Io, my lady." Song Qing-shu didn't know whether to sit or leave. After some thought, he decided to follow them to take a look. When he arrived at the backyard, he saw a young girl smashing things with all her might. The young girl was raising a blue and white porcelain vase above her head. When she suddenly saw Song Qing-shu, she froze. Song Qing-shu was also shocked. Wasn't this Li Yuanji? When she disappeared from the palace last time, he thought she went to find her lover after hearing that Yu Yutong had been rescued. Why was she in Zhang Xiaozhong's house now? Zhang Xiaozhong took the opportunity to take the vase from her hand and carefully handed it to the servant beside him. He then said, "Yuanji, what do you want?" Li Yuanji rolled her eyes. She didn't acknowledge Song Qing-shu and directly replied, "Let me out. I want to go home." "This won't do. Change to another one," Zhang Xiaozhong said with a dark expression. It turned out that Li Yuanji had wanted to contact her father's good friend in the capital to see if there was any way to rescue Yu Yutong. However, she had met Zhang Xiaozhong on the street. Li Yuanji's master, Lu Feiqing, and Zhang Xiaozhong were fellow disciples. A year ago, Zhang Xiaozhong had coincidentally met his little martial nephew. He was immediately shocked and even tried to propose marriage to Li Kaxiu. However, he didn't consider Li Yuanji's feelings. At that time, Li Yuanji was still a budding young girl. In her dreams, her lover was not a prince riding a white horse, but certainly not a strange uncle like Zhang Xiaozhong. Seeing the love in his eyes, he felt extremely disgusted. Li Yuanji's father, Li Kaxiu, had never been on good terms with Prince Bao and his son. Naturally, he didn't want his precious daughter to marry a dog under the father and son. Although Zhang Xiaozhong was Hong Li's favorite, in Li Kaxiu's eyes, he was indeed just a dog. In Li Kaxiu's view, even if his daughter couldn't enter the palace as a concubine, she should at least marry a duke. How could she like Zhang Xiaozhong? After Li Kaxiu was transferred to the south by the imperial court, Zhang Xiaozhong never saw Li Yuanji again. He didn't expect to see the person he yearned for the last time he went to the capital. After all these years, he knew that Li Kaxiu wouldn't marry her daughter to him, so he decided to take Li Yuanji back first. However, he didn't expect Li Yuanji to be so mischievous. Not only did he not take advantage of her, he even had to carefully treat her like a little ancestor. Of course, all of this stemmed from the sincere love he had for her. Once Li Yuanji wanted to leave, he would absolutely not indulge her. Hearing Zhang Xiaozhong's words, Li Yuanji pouted again and threw him to the ground. "Even if you tear down this house, I won't let you go." Hearing that crisp sound, Zhang Zhao's eyes widened in anger. His eyelids twitched. Finally, he threw down some harsh words and turned to leave. Out of sight, out of mind. Song Qing-shu turned to look at Li Yuanji, only to see her silently mouthing the word, "Save me." He nodded subconsciously and gave her a reassuring look before following Zhang Xiaozhong out. "I made a fool of myself in front of Brother Song," Zhang Xiaozhong said awkwardly when they returned to the banquet. "This little girl has a bad temper. Is she your daughter?" Song Qing-shu purposely mocked him. Zhang Xiaozhong's face turned red as expected, and he said embarrassedly, "No, she's my second senior brother's disciple. Her name is Li Yuanji. Second senior brother asked me to take care of her for a while." Although Song Qing-shu knew that Li Yuanji was most likely being held captive by him, he didn't know the ins and outs of the situation. In addition to the fact that danger was everywhere, he couldn't act rashly. He decided to secretly understand the situation from Li Yuanji at night. After bidding farewell to Zhang Zhaozhong, Song Qing-shu turned around to look at the Zhang residence and sneered coldly. I might not be able to barge into the impregnable Prince Bao's residence, but a mere Zhang residence is nothing to me. I have to save Xia Qingqing, steal the 42-chapter sutra, save Tian Guinong, and now, a Li Yuanji has popped out of nowhere. Oh my God, please save me. On the way back to the Four Quarters Embassy, Song Qing-shu felt as though his head was about to explode. Suddenly, his ears twitched. The sounds of fighting seemed to be coming from the street behind him. Curious, Song Qing-shu sneaked forward to take a look. The shops by the side of the street seemed to have received the news, and their doors and windows were tightly shut. A young married lady was fleeing in panic, and behind her was a large group of soldiers. The two men at the front had their temples protruding, and it was clear that they were experts with profound inner chi. The protruding of your temples already shows that you are extras. Even though it shows that they have a certain foundation in their inner chi, how could a true expert cultivate in such an unsightly manner? It's just like those university students in his previous life, playing basketball in front of the female dormitory. It doesn't matter whether you can shoot the ball or not. What matters is that you have a good posture. Otherwise, no matter how accurate your shot is, your posture is just like Ma Liang's. The same logic applies to martial arts. Putting aside the main character, even the more stylish villains don't have their temples bulging. Song Qing-shu had no idea why he was able to think so much about that woman. However, the cause of his current predicament was none other than her, Mandarin Duckblade, Luo Bing. Luo Bing staggered, clearly injured. She didn't run for long before realizing that there was no hope of escape. She hurriedly stopped and stared warily at the soldiers behind her with her sabers in hand. The two experts with protruding temples intentionally chimed in to provoke Luo Bing. I've long heard that the Red Flower Society's Mandarin Duckblade, Luo Bing, is a beautiful and flirtatious woman. Now that I've seen you today, your reputation is well-deserved. That's right. Lady, your husband has already been captured by us, and he's barely alive now. If you're willing to spend a night with us brothers, we'll whip him a few less times. Heh. Otherwise, even a man made of iron wouldn't be able to endure a few lashes of the whip. What man made of iron? I think the rushing thunder hand when Tai Lai is nothing more than this. He vomited blood after 2 palms from me. It's hard to live up to his reputation. Old brother, you don't understand. With such a beautiful wife, he naturally has to hug her to the hot Kong every day, when Tai Lai's body has long since been hollowed out. As the saying goes, there's no such thing as a field that can't be plowed, only an ox that dies of exhaustion. Naturally, he can only vomit blood after exchanging blows with old brother. Luo Bing's face was ashen. She was so angry that her whole body was trembling, but there was nothing she could do. In the morning, while the Red Flower Society members were discussing how to use the honey trap to deal with Song Qing-shu, countless soldiers suddenly rushed in. Almost all the experts under Prince Bao's residence had arrived. The Red Flower Society members hastily responded and were captured one after another. It must be Hong Li who wanted to silence them to hide the fact that he has Han blood in his body. Luo Bing could still hear you wanting shouts in her ears. At that time, the soldiers had targeted them. The Red Flower Society members had wanted to cover for Chen Jialuo and you wanting to escape first, but they were surrounded by the experts the moment they came face to face. Helpless, Chen Jialuo used himself as bait and tried his best to drag the experts of the prince's residence to cover the retreat of the other leaders. I wonder how many leaders managed to escape in the end. Luo Bing felt a chill in her heart. She understood that after today, the Red Flower Society was probably finished. She had wanted to stay and live and die with her husband, but her brothers had used their lives to fight out a path of blood for her. She could not bear to let their blood flow in vain. She made up her mind to first think of a way to reveal Hong Li's secret to the public, then accompany the Red Flower Society members in the underworld. Unfortunately, from the looks of it, it seemed that she would not be able to escape this calamity. At the moment of death, Luo Bing unexpectedly calmed down. She tightened her grip on the Mandarin duck saber. Before I die, I must kill a few more dog tartars. Before my strength is exhausted, I must kill myself to preserve my innocence. When she thought of her innocence, Luo Bing suddenly froze. She realized that back in the imperial palace, her innocence had already been destroyed by Song Qing-shu. A scorching hot breath suddenly came from her lower abdomen. Biting her lips, Luo Bing did her best to suppress the beautiful feeling in her heart. For some reason, after the incident in the imperial palace, in the dead of night, Luo Bing would always recall the scorching hot feeling of an iron rod penetrating her body. Sometimes, when she woke up from her dreams, she would discover that her legs were already wet. She could not help feeling terrified and perplexed. Song Qing-shu noticed that Luo Bing's figure was becoming more and more obscure. When the two martial arts experts surrounded her, their moves were extremely vulgar. He could not help but feel a burst of anger in his heart. Although this woman is annoying, even if she wants to punish her, it should be me. Who do you think you are? After tearing off a piece of his clothing and covering his face, Song Qing-shu leaped out and kicked away the perverted hand that the military officer had extended towards Luo Bing's chest. He then shielded her behind him. Who are you? When the soldiers saw a masked man suddenly appear, they were all startled. Noticing that his skill just now was not to be underestimated, they hurriedly spread out and surrounded the two of them in the middle. Luo Bing is also an unknowing chess piece. Although Song Qing-shu's face was masked, she still recognized him immediately. A woman would always have an indescribable sense of familiarity towards a man who had entered her body. Although the two of them had only been together for a short period of time, Luo Bing still remembered Song Qing-shu's figure and remembered his smell. However, his appearance still made Luo Bing subconsciously relax. No matter what, falling into his hands was better than falling into the hands of that group of Manchurian soldiers who were as ferocious as tigers and wolves. When she thought of how the Red Flower Society's people were still discussing how to use a honey trap to deal with Song Qing-shu, Luo Bing felt that it was an absurd reality. Song Qing-shu exchanged a few blows with the two men. He was also somewhat surprised by their skills. They did not seem like ordinary martial arts experts. Who are you? I don't kill nameless people. The two Manchurian martial arts experts immediately cursed. I, your grandfather, am the #1 warrior of Liaodong, Hai Lanbai. I am a #1 warrior of Liaodong, Bada Lidabu. IQ, Song Qing-shu was speechless when he heard this. This Lidabu was simply hopeless. Even when he was cursing, his companion could still take advantage of him. Chapter 217. Sun Tzu's Art of War states that there are 5 types of strategy: cause, internal, reverse, death, and life. In my opinion, the highest level of strategy is that the spy doesn't even realize that he is a spy. Yuan stood with his hands behind his back with no expression on his face. Women are easily influenced by their emotions. No matter how good Luo Bing's acting is, she will inevitably reveal some flaws. Song Qing-shu isn't stupid. If he sees through us, all our efforts will be in vain, so I can't place all our bets on Luo Bing. Wen Tai-Lai's face flashed with a trace of confusion. Not to mention Luo Bing, when the Manchurian soldiers broke in, I really thought that Hong Li was going to kill them. But wouldn't this be too unfair to Luo Bing? Those who achieve great things don't bother about trifles. Yuan looked back at Wen Tai-Lai. I am doing this to protect Luo Bing. She doesn't know that she has become a spy and naturally won't show any abnormalities. Her safety is the greatest guarantee. Hearing him say this, when Tai Lai finally felt a little better, he suddenly realized something and hurriedly asked, even Luo Bing doesn't know that she is a spy. Then how can she use her beauty? She doesn't need to take the initiative. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the game more clearly. I know Luo Bing's temperament better than you. Her following actions are all within my expectations. Naturally, she will unintentionally complete our plan. Yuan stopped talking and a trace of an unfathomable smile appeared on his face. when Tai Lai suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. The old branch leader in front of him seemed to be somewhat unrecognizable. Hailing by in debut, Song Qing-shu was stunned. He had just heard of these two names in Zhang Zhaozhong's residence. Although their martial arts were not as good as Zhang Zhaozhong's, they could barely be considered as masters of the same level. Song Qing-shu was worried that if he delayed for too long, there would be more and more masters and soldiers rushing over from Prince Bao's residence. So he decided to end the battle quickly. Hailon Bai and debut. Two people only saw a blur in front of their eyes. Song Qing-shu was already in front of them. Hastily, they raised their palms to meet the attack, but their palms hit empty air. While they were stunned, a sharp pain came from their chests, blood spurted out from their mouths, and they fell backward, crushing a large number of officers and soldiers. Song Qing-shu used his ghostly footwork to gain the upper hand, and then used a feint to lure the two to open their doors. In order not to expose his martial arts, he finally used an ordinary Taizu's long fist. Taking advantage of the confusion of the soldiers, he grabbed Luo Bing's waist and with a few leaps, disappeared at the end of the street. "Let's go." Yu Wanning saw that his goal had been achieved, so he turned around and left with Tai Lai. This little thief's martial arts are indeed impressive. Although when Tai Lai knew that this was only a trick, he still felt very uncomfortable thinking about his wife being held in his arms. Fortunately, old division leader, you have great foresight. Otherwise, if we were to use force to solve the problem, we really wouldn't have any chance of winning, Wu Zhuge and Su Tianong said. Inside the inn, the people of the Divine Dragon Cult. Senior Marshal Brother, do you really think that with our strength, we can really keep Song Qing-shu here? Seeing Song Qing-shu's ghostly footwork, Fat Tuchuo immediately felt cold sweat dripping down his back. Thin Tuchuo's face was ashen. Obviously, he regretted his previous judgment. Only Su Quan was still smiling like a flower, but in her heart, she already had other ideas. On the other side, Yalu Nanxian also covered her mouth and said in a low voice, "This Song Qing-shu is too fast." Yalu Qi's expression was solemn. "That's right, he is the fastest person I have ever seen." Su Yin didn't express his opinion. In his heart, he was thinking, could it be that he also practiced the legendary Sunflower Treasured Book? Looks like I need to re-evaluate his strength. After bringing Luo Bing to a secluded place, Song Qing-shu directly threw Luo Bing to the ground. "Tell me, why are the experts of the prince's mansion chasing after you?" With a groan, Luo Bing crawled up from the ground while rubbing her wrist. She looked at Song Qing-shu with a complicated expression. "You are always so violent. You recognize me?" Song Qing-shu was surprised. Luo Bing smiled sadly. "Even if you turn into ashes, I will remember you." Song Qing-shu pulled the cloth off his face and laughed coldly. "It's better that you recognize me. I still haven't properly settled the debt from last time with you." Debt from last time? Anger rose in Luo Bing's heart. "You ruined my innocence, and now you want to settle the debt with me. Your innocence? How much is it worth?" Song Qing-shu snorted. "It's not like you're a virgin. As long as you don't say anything and I don't say anything, no one will be able to tell if I stab you a few times. I don't believe your husband can tell anything." Luo Bing's face was deathly pale. She was so angry that her whole body was trembling. "I can guess what you said to Qing Qing that day. If it wasn't for you, Qing Qing would not have become Hongli's Fujin." Song Qing-shu suppressed his anger. "Even if Madame Yuan listened to me and went to look for Prince Bao, it has nothing to do with you. She is Madame Yuan, not Lady Song. You keep mentioning Qing Qing. It seems that you have designs on her." Luo Bing sneered. "Anyway, according to what you said, she is not a virgin. What can you tell if she is stabbed by other men? You are courting death." Song Qing-shu's eyes turned red. He sucked Luo Bing into his hand and strangled her neck. "You can kill me if you want, but you must do something for me first." Luo Bing opened her eyes wide. Although she was a little out of breath, she still looked at him calmly. Song Qing-shu was so angry that he laughed. He pushed her back. "Am I crazy or are you crazy?" "Of course I am not crazy." Luo Bing touched her neck. "No one knows better than our Red Flower Society about Kangxi and Hongli's desire to get rid of each other. As long as you do something for me, I will tell you a secret that can topple Hong Li. If your Red Flower Society had this ability, you would not have been chased by Hong Li like a stray dog. Song Qingshu sneered. His expression showed that he did not believe her. Luo Bing also understood that he would not help her with something based on an ambiguous statement. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Is Hong Li a Han? Are you going to say that he and your Chun Zongduozu are brothers? I don't believe it." Song Qingshu shook his head. The Manchurian Qing is very strict in examining the blood of the imperial family. Even if they are brothers, it only means that your Chun Zongduozu is a Manchurian. In his previous life, there was a widespread rumor that Hong Li was a Han Chinese. No matter which version it was, it all made sense. However, Song Qingshu felt that anyone with the slightest bit of judgment would know that this was just nonsense. Of course it is not like that. Luo Bing was excited and repeated the story of you wanting in the morning. Qian Jinwan? Song Qingshu's expression was strange. In his previous life, he had naturally heard of the all-encompassing Jinwan. Could it be that there really was such a person in history? I know that the Manchus and Han are forbidden from marrying each other. If the Manchu nobles find out that Hong Li has half Han blood flowing in his veins, he will definitely lose his position as a prince. This is exactly what your emperor wants. Luo Bing glanced at Song Qingshu nervously. As expected, the people of the Red Flower Society were a group of people with bronze but simple minds. Even if they had some intelligence, it was limited by their vision and was of no benefit to the bigger picture. Song Qingshu criticized silently. If Kangxi directly made this secret public, there would be no benefit other than forcing Hong Li to rebel. Hong Li had hundreds of thousands of soldiers in his hands. Luo Bing was naive enough to think that as long as the crime was proven, an imperial edict could take his old life. Word or no proof, I need evidence. If it was in the past, Song Qingshu would naturally be dismissive of Luo Bing's suggestion. It was in his interest for Hong Li and Kangxi to be in a stalemate for a long time. But recently, he had changed his mind. He needed Kangxi to quickly take care of Hong Li. Also, if he could obtain evidence that he was a Han, he would have another bargaining chip in his hands. He would be more confident in rescuing Xia Qingqing. Help me save the Red Flower Society brothers from the Wang Fu. I will naturally give it to you. Luo Bing was naturally not so stupid. She didn't even take the goods before handing over the money. Looking at your disheveled appearance just now, if I'm not wrong, it must have been the masters of the Wang Fu who suddenly attacked your stronghold. You fled in a hurry. How could you have had the time to bring any evidence? Song Qingshu did not believe her at all. He directly grabbed Luo Bing and began to search her body with his large hands. What are you doing? Luo Bing's beautiful face paled. Naturally searching your body. Song Qingshu sneered. Don't move. It's not like I haven't touched you before. As expected, Luo Bing stopped struggling. But her violently rising and falling chest showed that her mood was not so calm. How could I carry such important things on me? The Red Flower Society has long hidden them in a secret place. Sure enough, there is nothing. Song Qingshu took his hand out of her lapel. How do I know that you are not lying to me? Besides, with your rank in the Red Flower Society, I do not think you are qualified to know this secret. With a red face, Luo Bing buttoned up her disheveled clothes. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Song Qingshu stared at her face for a moment, but could not find any flaws. Finally, he nodded. Fine, I will believe you for the time being. But for this period of time, you have to stay by my side. If you are unable to hand over the evidence to me after rescuing them, at that time, not to mention your husband Wen Tai, I will even kill the other leaders of the Red Flower Society. Luo Bing's complexion paled, but at this moment, she had no other choice. She nodded. All right. Bringing her to the vicinity of the Four Quarters Embassy, Song Qingshu halted. With a frown, he said, there are bound to be many people watching over the Four Quarters Embassy. If I bring you in directly and you're discovered by Hong Li, things will be bad. Wait here for a moment. I will come out in a moment. After which, he sealed Luo Bing's acupoint and walked into the Four Quarters Embassy. With her acupoint sealed, Luo Bing was unable to move at all. Her heart was filled with fear. She was worried that she would be discovered by the passing soldiers, and she was also worried that some local ruffians might lay their hands on her. After a long period of time, just when Luo Bing felt that every second felt like a year, Song Qingshu finally returned. For some reason, upon seeing this demon-like man, Luo Bing heaved a long sigh of relief. Change into this set of Imperial Guard attire. In the future, you will be able to enter the Four Quarters Embassy without being noticed. Song Qingshu threw a set of clothes to her and unsealed her acupoint. Bending down to massage her numb calf, Luo Bing stared at the clothes before her silently. "Why aren't you changing?" Song Qingshu was taken aback. Chapter 2:18. Why? Song Qingshu quickly understood. He curled his lips and casually said, "It's not like I haven't seen it before." Even though this was what he said, Song Qingshu still turned his back. This place might be hidden, but there was no guarantee that no one would pass by. He wasn't willing to argue with Luo Bing for so long and cause unnecessary trouble. Seeing him turn around, Luo Bing hurriedly hid in a corner and changed into her guard uniform. "I'm done." Song Qingshu turned around and saw that the dignified young woman with a hint of flirtatious aura had disappeared. In her place was a handsome guard standing in front of him. "You're just a little too fair." Song Qingshu frowned and said in dissatisfaction, "Remember to lower your head when you follow behind me." Luo Bing gave an almost inaudible grunt of acknowledgement. Song Qingshu led her into the Four Quarters Embassy and into his bedroom. "You're disguised as a man, so I can't possibly let you sleep with the other guards. Here, before you tell me where the evidence is, you will stay in the same room as me." "What?" Luo Bing immediately stood up from her chair and said firmly, "Absolutely not." Song Qingshu ignored her. "Is that up to you? If you don't want to stay here, you can walk out from this door. Let's see who can save your husband and the Red Flower Society." "Ha! Speaking of which, it's hard to say whether you can even escape from Shengjing." Luo Bing's expression flickered. She raised her feet several times, but in the end, she sat down dejectedly. "Fine, but you're not allowed to be rude to me." Song Qingshu looked at Luo Bing strangely, thinking that no wonder the Red Flower Association was having a hard time achieving anything. It was clear from Luo Bing alone. She seemed to be in her 20s, but she was still as naive as a young girl. However, he couldn't be bothered to provoke her any further, so he casually replied, "Lord, Zhang Kongyan and Zhao Qixin have returned with their men." A guard's voice came from outside the room. "Invite them in." Song Qingshu calmly picked up a cup of tea and drank it. Luo Bing, on the other hand, fidgeted uneasily by the side. "Stand aside." Song Qingshu rolled his eyes at her. She was dressed like a bodyguard. How could she sit at the same table as her superior? Luo Bing's face paled, but she still stood up and stood in the corner. She lowered her head and said nothing. "This is?" Zhang Zhao asked. Just as the two of them were about to say something, they suddenly noticed Luo Bing in the corner and immediately stopped talking. "It's fine, we're on the same side." Song Qingshu did not explain much. In this era, it was normal for a boss to have secrets. If he had to explain everything to his subordinates, it would be even more suspicious. "How is it? Did you find anything?" Zhang and Zhao immediately put on a bitter face. "We dragged the people from Shengjing to drink and inadvertently found out that Tian Guinong has indeed disappeared recently. We really can't find him." "Doesn't that mean we didn't find anything?" Song Qingshu was speechless. "Let's go investigate again," Zhang and Zhao quickly said. "There's no need. I've already found him." Song Qingshu snorted coldly. "So many of us have searched everywhere, but we didn't find any useful information. Sir, you just went to a banquet and you found it. You're really smart." Zhang Kongyan and Zhao Qixin looked at each other and gave him a thumbs up. "Disgusting." Luo Bing, who was standing at the side, saw the two of them fawning over him and muttered. Zhang and Zhao were not powerful enough to hear her clearly, but Song Qingshu heard her clearly. He turned around and glared at her, indicating that she should not talk too much. "All right, Sir Song, the officials in Shengjing have been waiting for you to decide on the reward list and the amount of the reward, Zhao Qixian said carefully. Let them wait. When a main group of envoys arrives, someone will discuss it with them. Song Qingshu waved his hand impatiently on the surface, but in his heart he was thinking, before I can stay in Shengjing, I have to hurry up and finish what I need to do, yes. Zhao Qixian's face lit up. He didn't think there was anything wrong with Song Qingshu's deliberate delaying of official business. As the imperial envoy's entourage, Zhao Qixian and the others were also the targets of the lower-ranking officials in Shengjing. Their ranks were not high enough to get in touch with the imperial envoy, so they naturally started with the people around the imperial envoy. Zhao Qixian and the others were naturally willing to stay in Shengjing as long as possible. It's rare to have some peace and quiet. Song Qingshu stretched and let out a long sigh. After Hong Shui and Hong Li's banquet at the prince's residence yesterday, the other civil and military officials of Shengjing also sent him invitations to attend the banquet. He could only ask his subordinates to arrange the schedule and decline most of the invitations or send his men to express their intentions. However, there were a few that he still needed to meet personally. For example, the governor of Liaodong, the inspector general, and the military commander. They were the people the imperial court had planted in Liaodong to restrain Prince Bao. Before leaving, Kangxi had specifically told him to comfort these people. There was still some time before the banquet. Song Qingshu sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate his qi. Luo Bing secretly admired him. This man is a bit hateful, but he's always diligent in cultivation. No wonder his martial arts are so high. Song Qingshu opened his eyes as if he sensed something. Seeing Luo Bing shift her gaze away, he couldn't help but find it funny. He waved his hand and said, "Come here." "What for?" Luo Bing glanced at him cautiously. "Train with me," Song Qingshu said seriously. He understood that he didn't have much time left. He must seize the opportunity to improve his skills, not only for this trip to Shengjing, but also for something in the future. "How can I do that?" Luo Bing looked at him in surprise. "You'll know when you come here." Song Qingshu's lips curled into a smile. "I won't." Sensing the strangeness in his smile, Luo Bing subconsciously refused. "If you want to successfully rescue your husband, it's better for you to wait for me to improve my martial arts. Otherwise, you won't even have time to cry if something happens." Song Qingshu wasn't in a hurry and looked at her indifferently. "How much can you improve in such a short time?" Luo Bing looked at him suspiciously. "My cultivation method is a bit different. The level of one's skill doesn't depend on the accumulation of time," Song Qingshu replied. Seeing that Luo Bing didn't believe him, Song Qingshu smiled and said, "What do you think of my martial arts?" Although unwilling to admit it, Luo Bing still nodded unwillingly. "Very good. Are the people of your Red Flower Society diligent in their cultivation?" Song Qingshu continued to ask. For the sake of fighting against the Qing, of course the brothers in the society are diligent in their cultivation. Luo Bing clenched her teeth and replied, "You see, I'm younger than you, but my martial arts are much higher than yours. Do you still think that I rely on time to increase my martial arts?" Song Qingshu spread out his hands. Luo Bing felt that what he said was somewhat reasonable. After hesitating for a while, she moved step by step to the side of the bed and whispered, "Then how do you want me to cultivate with you?" "Take off your clothes first," Song Qingshu said with a normal expression. "What? Are you playing with me?" Luo Bing flew into a rage and was about to turn around to leave. Who would have thought that Song Qingshu's hand would suddenly reach out and pull her onto the bed? Luo Bing suddenly lost her balance and fell into his arms. "I wanted to play with you, and now you know." Song Qingshu looked at the woman in his arms and proudly said, "Let me go." Luo Bing struggled with all her might, but her entire body was still firmly held in Song Qingshu's hands. "Don't pretend to be a chaste woman in front of me. In any case, we have already done the deed of husband and wife." A trace of hostility flashed through Song Qingshu's eyes. "About the matter of you instigating Qingqing last time, I should now settle the debt with you. First, take off this guard uniform. It spoils my appetite." Finished speaking, he quickly and easily stripped off the inner guard uniform on Luo Bing's body. Isn't it because you caused our Red Flower Society to fail in their assassination last time? I did in a moment of anger. Knowing that it was useless, Luo Bing still explained. Then I can also say that if your assassination had succeeded, I would have faced the calamity of having my entire family exterminated. Song Qing-shu added in his heart, "It is a pity that I am the only one in the family. You have a reason to do so, but what you have done has harmed me and hindered my plan. Naturally, I would have acted to stop you. In the end, you were unable to defeat me. Who can you blame for this? This is a fallacy. Are you saying that whoever has the bigger fist represents the truth?" Luo Bing retorted angrily. "Isn't that the case?" Song Qing-shu retorted. Luo Bing was taken aback by the question. Thinking about the current chaotic world, she suddenly realized that she had no way to refute it. Although the person with the bigger fist can win a temporary victory, it cannot stop the mouths of the people of the world. Luo Bing finally found a reason to refute. The mouths of the people of the world? Song Qing-shu seemed to have been angered. He stopped his evil hands and snorted coldly. When Temujin went to war, he slaughtered entire cities and wiped out entire families. When did he ever care about the mouths of the people? When the soldiers were at the gates of the city, those who criticized him either fled or surrendered. What's the use of mouths of the people of the world? Not to mention that history has its own public opinion. The Mongols conquered the world, leaving the Central Plains with thousands of miles of bones and the western regions uninhabited. Thousands of years later, didn't they still say that they were promoting ethnic integration and that the East and the West interacted? Back then, there wasn't a single person in the western regions for thousands of miles. I'd like to know how the East and the West interacted. Luo Bing, do you know why the Mongolian army was undefeated? Although Luo Bing felt that it was a bit ridiculous for the two of them to discuss this in such a posture, she still answered. The Mongolian cavalry came and went like the wind. Their riding and archery skills were unparalleled in the world. How could they win? Come and go like the wind, Song Qing-shu said in a low voice. In ancient wars, mobility was king. The reason why the Mongolian army could come and go like the wind wasn't entirely because they were all cavalry. More importantly, they never needed logistics in battle. All the rations they needed were directly taken from the hands of their opponents. When the Central Plains government fought a war, they would send out an army of 100,000, but they would also need to use nearly 1,000,000 logisticians. With such poor mobility, how could they win? The Mongols are doomed to self-destruction. When they took rations from the hands of their citizens, they would inevitably incite the citizens to fight to the death. I don't think it was a wise move. Luo Bing had read some history books and naturally knew how unwise it was to incite a rebellion. Chapter 219. Luo Bing felt her hair stand on end. Gritting her teeth, she said, "You're being too alarmist. Why haven't I heard of these things before?" She felt that some of Song Qing-shu's words were confusing, and she didn't know what he was talking about. Of course you don't know what will happen in the future. Song Qing-shu didn't want to drag this topic too far away from her. Hugging the curvaceous beauty in his arms, he quickly got the feeling, let's just practice. How can you practice like this? Feeling the change in Song Qing-shu's body, Luo Bing was both embarrassed and angry. Unfortunately, the difference in power between the two of them was too great. She was always in the other's control. "I know you must hate me in your heart right now." Song Qing-shu bent down and whispered in her ear, "But you can totally imagine that you're helping me increase my power so that you can save your husband in the future. Does that make you feel better? I don't believe that you're practicing." Luo Bing had dreamed of this scene countless nights. Although she was still rational, her body had already softened. "Then you'll have to experience it later." Song Qing-shu didn't say anything else. His hot lips pressed against her smooth skin. "Is this the posture you practice?" After a long time, Luo Bing felt like she was about to faint from Song Qing-shu's strange and embarrassing posture. This is the posture of the combination of the bright king and the bright concubine. Song Qing-shu's tone didn't seem to feel anything. Compared to her hatred for Song Qing-shu, Luo Bing hated herself even more. Why did she still have a vague sense of anticipation in her heart? Why did she act so lowly? Last time, it could be said that she was forced, but this time, it was clearly half voluntary. After trembling for a while, Song Qingshu let go of her. Luo Bing even felt a sense of loss. She struggled to open her tired eyes and saw that Song Qingshu was actually sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. It was obvious that he was cultivating an extremely profound internal energy. "You're really practicing?" Luo Bing was surprised. "Now you know I didn't lie to you." Song Qingshu's eyes were still closed as he adjusted the yin and yang qi in his body. He felt that his genuine qi had grown a little stronger, and he was very glad. He was worried that the delightful Diana would not have any effect on him since they had already had physical contact with each other. Now it seemed that as long as the delightful Diana had not taken advantage of her before, she would still be able to provide him with rich, pure yin qi. How could there be such a despicable cultivation technique? Luo Bing blushed as she spat on the ground. In the end, she still couldn't resist the tide-like feeling of exhaustion. Hugging Song Qingshu's waist, she fell into a deep sleep. When Luo Bing woke up, Song Qingshu was already dressed and sitting on a stool, looking at her with a faint smile. Luo Bing pulled up the quilt a little and felt a little more secure. "Sleep for a while. I'll send someone to bring you dinner later. If you have any requests, just tell the guards outside." Chapter 218. Waiting for the hare by the stump. Going to attend some banquets, and I'm afraid I'll come back a little late. "Don't wait for me then. Go to sleep first." Song Qingshu stood up and walked out after he finished speaking. "Who's going to wait for you?" Luo Bing was very unused to this kind of conversation between husband and wife. She stared blankly at him until he disappeared at the door before she reacted. She grabbed the quilt and covered her head, then spat on the quilt with a red face. Song Qingshu went to attend the banquet organized by the Liaodong governor. During the banquet, he exchanged profound opinions and suggestions with the local officials of the imperial court on the matter of Prince Bao. Song Qingshu believed that the relevant functional departments and the various levels of the governor's mansion and county should further clarify their respective responsibilities, strengthen coordination, and do the ideological work of the people to show the attitude and determination of the imperial court and the local government. Song Qingshu emphasized that the reasonable demands of the lower-level officials and the people should be implemented as soon as possible to gain their understanding and support. Those officials and local tyrants who were destined to be unable to be won over must be dealt with according to the laws and regulations to eliminate the hidden dangers as soon as possible. The governor, inspector general, and the others all expressed that they would be closely united around the imperial court and resolutely obey the orders of the emperor. The banquet ended in such a harmonious and joyful atmosphere. The moment Song Qingshu left the residence, he called for Zhang Kangyan and Zhao Qixian to lead the guards to escort the empty sedan back to the Four Quarters Embassy. "But it's too dangerous for Lord to be alone," Zhang Kangyan said hesitantly. If an assassin really comes, I really don't know whether you'll be protecting me or me protecting you." Song Qingshu rolled his eyes at him. "Go back quickly. Don't let anyone discover that I'm not in the sedan." "That's true. Lord Song's martial arts are unparalleled, so naturally, assassins won't be in your eyes." Zhang Kangyan scratched the back of his head and chuckled. He then beckoned for the rest of the guards to leave. Seeing the crowd disappear into the distance, Song Qingshu leaned against the corner of the wall and retched. "That really disgusted me. I should go and see what's going on with that lass, Li Yuanji." After which, he headed back to the Zhang residence. Arriving at the vicinity of the Zhang residence, Song Qingshu carefully examined the surroundings. After ascertaining that there was no one in the surroundings, he leaped into the residence soundlessly. Of course, Zhang Zhaozhong's residence wasn't as tightly guarded as Prince Bao's residence. Casually avoiding a few patrolling guards, Song Qingshu snuck into the rear residence. Following his memory, he arrived at the room where Li Yuanji made a ruckus earlier in the day. Approaching the window, Song Qingshu used his hand to poke a hole in the paper window, intending to take a look at the situation inside. However, just as he moved his eyes closer, he saw a sharp sword stabbing out. Alarmed, Song Qingshu hurriedly retreated backward. At the same time, he stretched out 2 fingers to clamp down on the blade of the sword. "Brother Song, it's you." Before Song Qingshu could react, a surprised exclamation sounded by his ear. Lifting his head to take a look, he realized that the person holding the sword was Li Yuanji. "What the hell are you doing?" Song Qingshu secretly broke out in a cold sweat. If it wasn't for his quick reflexes, he would have long become a blind man. Who would have guessed that there was a sharp sword guarding behind the window? "I thought it would be Zhang Xiaozhong, that old pervert. Where's the ghost?" Li Yuanji smiled embarrassedly. Looking around, she hurriedly stretched out her hand to pull Song Qingshu into the room. "Zhang Xiaozhong has ulterior motives towards you." Song Qingshu couldn't help but change his expression. No matter what, Zhang Xiaozhong was still her martial uncle. How could he disregard his status like this? If this were to spread to the pugilistic world, there would probably be no place for him to stand. But looking at Zhang Xiaozhong, it seemed that he was only interested in the imperial court. It was unlikely that he would return to the pugilistic world. Not really. After Li Yuanji closed the door, she sighed. "That day in the imperial palace in the capital, I lost track of you after I returned. I originally thought that you went to find your sweetheart, Yu Yutong, but now it seems that there's another reason." Song Qingshu looked at her in confusion. Li Yuanji's eyes reddened. Holding back the tears in her eyes, she pursed her lips and told him the whole story. "At that time, you were captured by Zhang Xiaozhong and brought back to Xingjing." He also felt strange. What was Zhang Xiaozhong doing in the capital at that time? Could it be that he was helping Hong Li find out some information? "Yes, I'm so pitiful. It's been so long, and no one has come to save me." Li Yuanji's eyes widened as she blinked at Song Qingshu. "We don't know what's wrong with you." Song Qingshu thought of another matter and carefully asked, "Zhang Xiaozhong didn't treat you badly, did he?" Li Yuanji immediately understood what he meant. With a red face, she said, "No, he didn't. He wanted me to agree to marry him and use this opportunity to climb up my father's high branch. Naturally, he wouldn't dare to offend me. It's just that I have to listen to his noise every day. It's really annoying. Have you never thought of running away? I remember that your martial arts aren't weak. This Zhang mansion isn't some iron wall." Song Qingshu asked curiously. "Why not? I ran away a few times, but basically I was stopped by him as soon as I left the mansion. I couldn't beat him. Later, Zhang Xiaozhong was angered by me. He said that if I ran away again, he would use force on me. I was afraid, so naturally I didn't dare to run away." Li Yuanji said pitifully, "Sure enough, the poor are afraid of the unreasonable, and the unreasonable are afraid of the stupid. I didn't think that Miss Li, who has always been weird, would also be defeated." Song Qingshu's voice couldn't hide the schadenfreude in it. "I'm already so pitiful, and you're still making fun of me." Li Yuanji pouted and turned around. Okay, I'll get you out now." Seeing that she was lively and cute, Song Qingshu dotingly stroked her hair. Li Yuanji's face turned red. "Brother Song, didn't anyone tell you that a girl's head can't be touched so casually?" "Who said that?" "I only said a man's head, a woman's waist. Don't touch it unless you're a lover." "I didn't touch her waist," Song Qingshu said, unable to suppress the smile on his face. "I'm worried that I'll alert that bastard Zhang Xiaozhong if I go out." Li Yuanji's thoughts quickly returned to the problem of running away. "Don't worry." Chapter 218. Waiting for rabbits with me around. He won't be able to find out. Song Qingshu smiled confidently. "I almost forgot that Brother Song's martial arts are so good. When I get home, I'll definitely ask my father to pull out his tendons and skin him alive. Only then will I be able to vent my anger." Li Yuanji said angrily. "Some people don't like to go home." "What? You're only now discovering the benefits of home?" Song Qingshu deliberately teased. "Yes," Li Yuanji replied, thinking about how she had been away from her parents for so long without telling them that she was safe. They must be worried sick. "Then let's pack our things and go." Song Qingshu stood up and gestured for her to leave. "What's there to pack? It wasn't easy for me to wait for you. It's best if we leave this place as soon as possible." Li Yuanji said excitedly. She only held the sword in her hand and didn't look at anything else in the room. Aren't you going to bring some clothes? I only have men's clothes at my place. Song Qing-shu didn't expect her to be so hurried and leave as soon as she said she would. Brother Song, you're such a high-ranking official. You must be greedy. When the time comes, just buy me new clothes. Li Yuanji's answer almost made Song Qing-shu vomit blood, but he thought about it again. Although he wasn't afraid of Zhang Zhaozhong, it wouldn't be good if he alerted him and the two of them met face to face. During the day, they had just called each other brothers, but at night, they came in to steal chickens and dogs. No matter how thick Song Qing-shu's skin was, he couldn't handle this kind of situation. Lord Song's ability to steal is really not bad. Just as Song Qing-shu hugged Li Yuanji and jumped over the walls of the Zhang residence, a female voice that seemed to be laughing, yet not laughing, came from the side. Song Qing-shu and Li Yuanji looked back in horror. Chapter 220. Li Yuanji was already feeling very embarrassed when she was carried horizontally in Song Qing-shu's arms. When she heard this voice, she hurriedly jumped out of Song Qing-shu's arms. Song Qing-shu shielded Li Yuanji behind him and raised his head to look. What entered his eyes was a beauty of about 23 or 24 years old. There are also a few people scattered around, intentionally or unintentionally blocking their way. Feeling that Song Qing-shu's entire body was filled with energy, the beauty smiled and said, "Sir Song, please don't misunderstand. We have absolutely no ill intentions. We just want to have a chat with you." "What if I don't want to chat?" Song Qing-shu couldn't figure out where these people came from. Looking at their figures, although their martial arts couldn't be considered top-notch, they didn't seem to be weaker than the experts raised by the Wangfu. He was now carrying Li Yuanji. If they really fought, it would be a little troublesome. Sir Song's martial arts are superior. Naturally, you can come and go as you please. We can't stop you even if we wanted to. It's just that if you fight later and alert the experts under Zhang Zhaozhong, or even Bao Prince's command, they would see a dignified imperial envoy running into an official's mansion in the middle of the night carrying a woman out. If this gets out, I'm afraid it would damage your reputation. The beauty chuckled. Although the pronunciation of every word was charming and pleasing, the threat in her tone couldn't be concealed. Such a coquettish smile. One look, and I can tell that you're not a good girl. Li Yuanji saw that her words were unpleasant and naturally wouldn't give her any face. The beauty's subordinate immediately had a strange expression. She looked like she wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to. The beauty was also fuming with anger. Usually, she loved to use this kind of provocative tone to talk to men. It was always successful. Today, she was being ridiculed by another young girl. She couldn't refute, so her pretty face couldn't help but darken. Song Qing-shu guarded against the beauty's sudden attack on Li Yuanji. He smiled and said, "Madam is such a beautiful person. I'm sure your speech must be elegant." Song Mao is suddenly interested in chatting with Madam. The beauty in front of him already had her hair tied up. One look, and it was obvious that she was a married woman. The beauty's anger turned to joy. She smiled and said, "Sir Song is indeed generous. It's not convenient to talk here. Please follow me." She then turned and walked away. Song Qing-shu was about to follow, but Li Yuanji pulled his arm. "Brother Song, they are of unknown origin. Be careful." Patting the back of Li Yuanji's hand, Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "I don't think they have any evil intentions. Don't worry, with my martial arts, they won't be able to keep us here." "Madam, can you tell me now?" When they arrived at an abandoned house, Song Qing-shu stopped Li Yuanji. Madam won, and Madam smiled and nodded. "She won. You won." Song Qing-shu saw a pair of hands that looked like they were carved out of white jade attacking him like a snake. His eyes narrowed, and he struck out with his palm, wanting to use his inner force to force her back. Song Qing-shu saw a pair of hands that looked like they were carved out of white jade coming at him like a snake. Song Qing-shu's eyes narrowed, and he struck out with his palm. He wanted to use his inner energy to force her back. Chapter 219, Killing with a Borrowed Knife. Looks like Sir Song's martial arts are not that great. The beauty smiled, but her eyes could not hide the disappointment. Song Qing-shu snorted and shook his shoulders. The beauty felt a great force coming from her hands. She could no longer hold them. Just as she was about to retreat, she felt a numbness in her chest. The opponent's hands that were entangled had taken the opportunity to move forward and seal her breast acupoint. Secretly cursing, the beauty smiled and said, "Sir Song is indeed a gentleman who cherishes flowers. You obviously sealed her major acupoint, but you don't have the heart to hurt her." As she spoke, she stopped the people who were about to rush forward. Song Qing-shu looked at her in surprise. In this era, if a Jianghu, chivalrous woman had this kind of acupoint sealed, she would have already cursed it out loud. Although he did not mean to do it just now, he was just taking advantage of the situation, but after all, he could not explain it clearly. Seeing that she had just brushed it off, Song Qing-shu was not stupid enough to continue to dwell on this issue. "Turns out Madam is a divine dragon Jiao person. Sorry for my disrespect." A hint of surprise appeared on the beautiful woman's face. "How did you know?" "The divine dragon sect golden snake winding hand. The characteristic is so obvious that it is hard for people not to recognize it." Song Qing-shu smiled and gently patted Li Yuanji's wrist. With the help of the scabbard in her hand, he unsealed the beauty's acupoint. "If I am not wrong, you must be the wife of the Divine Dragon Island's leader. This tall one must be Fat Tucho, one of the fat and thin venerables of Liaodong. This stout one must be Thin Tuchuo. As for the rest, please forgive Song Mao's poor eyesight. Which divine dragon envoys are they?" Su Quan rubbed her chest without a trace. Hearing this, she smiled and said, "Sir Song is really discerning. Ordinary people often confuse the identities of the fat and thin venerables. I didn't expect you to be so clear about them." However, a trace of coldness rose in her heart. There was news that Emperor Kangxi sent Song Qing-shu to set up a spy agency to be responsible for spying on the world's intelligence. In such a short period of time, he actually found out the situation of my divine dragon sect so clearly. If I remember correctly, I even fought with cult leader Hong last year. Song Qing-shu looked into Su Quan's eyes. "Speaking of which, Divine Dragon Sect and Song Mao are enemies and not friends. I wonder what advice does Madam have for me this time?" Sir Song must be joking. The matter last time was just a misunderstanding. After cult leader fought with you, when he returned to the sect, he was full of praise for you. He often praised you in front of us that you were so young, yet you're able to practice such a strong skill. Hearing Su Quan's laughter, the people of Divine Dragon Sect all had strange expressions on their faces. They cursed endlessly in their hearts. The last time I was injured by Song Qing-shu's hands, I was regarded by cult leader as a great shame and humiliation. When I returned to Divine Dragon Island, I went into closed-door training. How could it be like what Madam said? Song Qing-shu was used to seeing people who lie without batting an eyelid. He did not take Su Quan's words to heart. Hearing what was said, he smiled and said, "Since Madam has nothing else, then Song Mao will take his leave." Finished speaking, he protected Li Yuanji as he turned around and walked out. Wait, Su Quan was anxious. It was not easy for her to find an opportunity to come into contact with Song Qing-shu. How could she let him go just like that? I wonder if Song Darren knows that you are already facing imminent disaster. Although I know that you are deliberately using words to shock the world, I have to say that you have succeeded. But I have to say, you've succeeded. Tell me more. Song Qing-shu stopped and turned around to look at Su Quan. Su Quan was not in a hurry to explain. Instead, she opened her mouth to ask, "The conflict between Kangxi and Hong Li has long been a secret. Do you admit it? I am now the imperial envoy. There are some things that I cannot casually say." Song Qing-shu did not answer directly, but the meaning of his words was clear to both sides. Su Quan revealed a knowing smile. "You are Kangxi's trusted aide and beloved general, yet you are deep in Hong Li's territory. If I were Hong Li, I would definitely not be able to restrain myself from making a move against you." Song Qing-shu had a disapproving expression. He thought that Kangxi was thinking of ways to prevent the conflict between the two of them from erupting prematurely. Wasn't it the same for Hong Li? If Hong Li were to make a move against him, this imperial envoy, wouldn't that force Kangxi to start a war with him? It just so happens that we have recently found out that Hong Li is planning a plot against Divine Dragon Sect. Since we have a common enemy, why don't we temporarily turn enemies into friends? Su Quan's voice was soft and charming, with a hint of eroding the bones. As a woman, Li Yuanji could not help but want to agree on behalf of Song Qingshu. Charm technique? I don't know which sect it is. Speaking of which, does Divine Dragon Island have such a technique? Song Qingshu cultivated the blissful Diana, so he naturally had some resistance towards related techniques. He suppressed the doubts in his heart and opened his mouth to say, to be friends with such a beautiful and charming woman like Foreign, this humble one naturally wishes for nothing more. However, what does Foreign wish for this humble one to do? Song Qingshu was very clear that Divine Dragon Sect had sought him out because he had something that they could use. Since we are friends, then it is naturally not a big problem for friends to help each other. Su Quan's eyes shimmered, full of smiles. This humble one would like to ask Song Darren to lend us a hand and investigate what exactly Hong Li is plotting against our Divine Dragon Sect. Su Quan also had no choice. The matter that Hong Li and Xia Qingqing were discussing was the top secret about Qin Wang Fu. There were not more than 5 people who knew about it. Although the people of Divine Dragon Sect had secretly held some of the Wang Fu officials hostage, they knew nothing about it. Su Quan was also worried that holding officials hostage would alert the enemy sooner or later, so she thought of Song Qingshu, the imperial envoy minister. What a coincidence! An idea flashed in Song Qingshu's mind. He thought quickly and said while thinking, actually, the imperial court is also investigating this matter. Is that so? Su Quan's heart was filled with doubts. With Divine Dragon Sect's power in Liaodong, they must know that the master under Bao Qin Wang Fu is Tian Guinong, the Heavenly Dragon Sect leader. Gradually, a bold plan formed in Song Qingshu's mind. I have heard of him. Su Quan grunted. To be honest, Tian Guinong is a secret agent of the Imperial Court. The Imperial Court had sent him to Liaodong for many years. With great difficulty, he finally managed to infiltrate Hong Li's core group. In the end, his identity was exposed due to something. He did not even have the time to pass on the information that he finally obtained before he was imprisoned and tortured by Hong Li. Song Qingshu's tone was calm, but the people of Divine Dragon Sect did not know that he was actually thinking to the side. This time, His Majesty sent me as the Imperial Envoy Minister. Actually, I have another secret mission, which is to rescue Tian Guinong. The information that Madame wants to find out, Tian Guinong will definitely know. Song Qingshu's 9 truths and 1 falsehood made Su Quan very confused. She turned her head to look at Lu Gaoxian, who understood her meaning. Lu Gaoxian came to her side and quietly said, according to the sect's intelligence, Tian Guinong did indeed secretly come into contact with Song Qingshu at Shanhai Pass that day, which aroused Hong Li's suspicion. Su Quan had an idea. She smiled slightly, revealing a row of fine white teeth. Song Darren wants us to help you rescue Tian Guinong. Song Qingshu answered, Madame's words are too serious. Rescuing Tian Guinong is actually the same as helping Divine Dragon Sect. Moreover, since you and I are friends, why can't we help each other? Why do I always have the feeling that I am still counting the money for you after being sold by you? Su Quan's charming eyes rolled at Song Qingshu. She smiled tenderly and said, all right, but Bao Qin Wang Fu's security is tight. The matter of rescuing Tian Guinong still needs to be discussed at length. Hearing Su Quan's agreement, Fin Tuchuo's eyes brightened, but he quickly concealed it. Chapter 2:21. Su Quan wasn't willing to reveal her whereabouts, so she hurriedly said, if there's anything, look for me at the Myriad Grand Tavern in the east of the city. After which, she hurriedly led the Divine Dragon cult members away. Song Qingshu brought Li Yuanji to a nearby tree, and soon, a group of patrolling soldiers appeared before them. After checking the surroundings, the leading officer exclaimed in surprise, "I clearly heard a woman's laughter here. It can't be a ghost crying at night, right? This residence has been abandoned for a very long time, and it's said that a family of 13 was killed by bandits." A soldier shrunk his shoulders. The officer also felt a chill down his spine, and he spat, "What bad luck! Let's go," after which he led his subordinates away. That woman's laughter was so unrestrained that it attracted the soldiers here. With Su Quan's departure, the bewitching aura dissipated, and Li Yuanji regained her senses and pouted. In the dead of the night, a woman's voice is sharp, so it's natural for it to travel far. "Lass, if you speak ill of other women behind their backs, you might end up with sores in your mouth." Song Qingshu teased, but in his heart, he was thinking, even though this Su Quan's martial arts are passable, it's nothing much. More importantly, where did she learn her bewitching technique? If she hadn't tried her best to influence my mind, her voice wouldn't have leaked out and attracted the patrolling soldiers. "Brother Song, I think you must have been bewitched by that woman. Why are you speaking up for her so quickly?" Li Yuanji's voice was filled with frustration. "That's right. Men love this kind of mature and beautiful women. If I don't fall for her, would I fall for a young lady like her?" Song Qingshu retorted, and Li Yuanji's face immediately flushed red. "I'm also very beautiful, all right?" On the way back to the Four Quarters Embassy, Li Yuanji's face was dark, and she was sulking. "Since you're so beautiful, why did you take the initiative to attack me? I don't like you." Song Qingshu intentionally teased, but he was still thinking of unraveling the knot in her heart. Who would have thought that Li Yuanji's words would hit the nail on the head? Her eyes reddened, and she sat down under a tree by the river. She hugged her knees and buried her head in them, sobbing. Song Qingshu didn't expect that Li Yuanji, who was always spirited and bold, would have such a delicate side to her. He hurriedly comforted her. "Actually, young girls are also very charming. You're slender and delicate, shy and pure, lovely and moving. These are all things that mature women can't compare to. Moreover, there's no man who doesn't like a beautiful young girl like you. Yu Yutong must be blind not to like you. Can't he see how much Zhang Xiaozhong likes you? Don't use that pervert to disgust people." Li Yuanji's tears turned into laughter. "Since all men like him, then do you like him?" The young girl's eyes sparkled, and her voice carried a hint of nervousness. "Of course I do. If Yu Yutong doesn't want you anymore, you can marry me," Song Qingshu said with a cheeky smile. "Tui," Li Yuanji spat. She knew that Song Qingshu would casually reply with a mysterious gift. However, she still couldn't hide the butterflies in her stomach. However, she had grown up in the northern lands, so her free and easy personality allowed her to quickly recover. She snorted, "You're so insincere. You can't even compare to that old pervert Zhang Xiaozhong. I'd rather marry him than marry you." "Hey, you don't have to be so cruel." Song Qingshu immediately became gloomy. "Big brother Song, let me ask you a question. You have to answer me honestly." Li Yuanji suddenly stopped smiling and said solemnly, "What?" Song Qingshu was stunned. "If big sister Luo Bing and I were both willing to marry you, who would you choose?" Li Yuanji looked at him with anticipation. What an erotic topic. Song Qingshu didn't expect that she would ask such a question with such a serious expression. Happiness came too suddenly. "Let me take a moment. I'm saying if," Li Yuanji said exasperatedly. She wanted Song Qingshu to see from a man's point of view who was more attractive between her and Luo Bing. Song Qingshu was also a little speechless. He thought, "I've already played all over Luo Bing's body. How can I still make an objective evaluation?" A trace of a smile appeared on his lips. "If it were me, I'd definitely take both of you." "No, you can only choose one." Li Yuanji was almost angered to death. "Is that so?" Song Qingshu stared at Li Yuanji and looked her up and down. Noticing that she was extremely nervous, he smiled. "Then I'll choose you." Li Yuanji's eyes immediately curved. However, she deliberately suppressed the smile on her face so that Song Qingshu wouldn't think that she was getting carried away and affecting her glorious image. She quickly asked seriously why. "There's no why. As the saying goes, there are 8 sufferings in life: birth, old age, illness, death, separation from love, resentment, unattainable, and being unable to let go. If you want something, you won't cherish it that much. A wife is inferior to a concubine. A concubine is inferior to a mistress, and a mistress is inferior to a mistress. I've already done Luo Bing, so naturally, her charm isn't comparable to this lively young lady before me. In the blink of an eye, many thoughts flashed through Song Qingshu's mind. Of course, he didn't have the guts to tell Li Yuanji the true reason for fear of destroying a young lady's dream of love. Thus, he could only lie to her. No matter how gentle and charming Luo Bing is, she's still someone else's wife. If I were to choose, I'd definitely choose a pure young lady who treats me wholeheartedly. However, he added in his heart, of course, choosing a lover is another matter altogether. Li Yuanji was delighted. All men would wish for their wives to be young before they got married. Compared to big sister Luo Bing, this was her greatest advantage. After Yu Yutong calms down a little, it's not as if I don't have a chance. All right, stop acting like a love-struck fool. Song Qingshu saw that her eyes were glazed over and guessed that she must be having some sweet dreams. I'll bring you back to the Four Quarters Embassy first. I still have some matters to attend to later. Sure. Li Yuanji was overjoyed. Everything she saw was pleasing to the eye. She stretched her hand in front of Song Qingshu and said coquettishly, "My legs are numb. Pull me up." The pair of hands before her were as fair as jade, slender and clean. Her skin was fair and rosy, so tender that it seemed as if water could be squeezed out of it. Song Qingshu saw that her eyes were clear and pure. He couldn't help but grumble. Don't you need to preserve your chastity for your Yu Yutong? It's just holding hands. Big brother Song, your thoughts are so filthy. Li Yuanji glared at him. Ever since I was young, I've touched countless men's hands, whether it's horse riding or martial arts training. What's the big deal about this? You're the one who's been touched by someone else, right? Even though Song Qingshu's words were still unyielding, he still reached out to hold the soft hand in front of him. It felt as if there were no bones in his hand. Sighing in admiration, he exerted a little strength to pull her up. Big brother Song, I think you can let go now. Li Yuanji saw that Song Qingshu had no intention of letting go after pulling her up. Instead, he held her hand and walked away. Even though Li Yuanji was thick-skinned, she couldn't take it. Song Qingshu didn't say anything else and quietly released her. He turned around and smiled at her. Let's go. All right, put on this guard uniform later. It won't be good if others see it. After he finished speaking, he stuffed a bag from his back into her hands. For some reason, even when they entered the Four Quarters Embassy, Li Yuanji could still feel the warmth of his hand. For a moment, her soul seemed to have left her body. Miss Li? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded by her ear. Li Yuanji raised her head in astonishment and saw Luo Bing, dressed in a guard uniform, sitting in the room, staring at her in a daze. Meanwhile, in the Four Quarters Embassy, Zhang Kengyan and Zhao Qixin saw that Song Qingshu had brought another guard into his bedroom, and they couldn't help but whisper to one another. The guard from yesterday didn't come out, and yet another one went in? Indeed, I didn't expect Lord Song's dignified and talented appearance to have such a taste. That guard has a petite figure and fair skin. I'm afraid that she's a lady. Sigh, there are many men in this world with fair skin. I heard that the people in the Xiang residence would rub a kind of medicinal powder on their young boys, and by the time they grow up, their skin would be even fairer than a lady's. Why do you know so much about it? Could it be that? Don't think too much. I've only heard of it. Say, how good are women? They're slender and delicate. Why would Lord Song like men? SSS, do you think that Lord Song will suddenly know? It can't be. Our skin is thick, so we shouldn't be able to catch Lord Song's eye. This won't do. In the future, I should head out to do more missions. It's too dangerous to stay in the Four Quarters Embassy. After Song Qingshu left, Luo Bing waited in the room uneasily. On one hand, she regretted allowing Song Qingshu to get close to her so easily. On the other hand, she was worried that Song Qingshu wouldn't be able to save her husband in the end. What should she do? What should I do? I was still thinking about how I should reject Song Qingshu's request when he came back. When the door was pushed open, she saw Li Yuanji by Song Qingshu's side, and she was both delighted and fearful. She was delighted that with Li Yuanji around, Song Qingshu wouldn't dare to act so brazenly. Wuji was fearful of her, but she was fearful that Li Yuanji might find out that her chastity had been stolen by Song Qingshu. In truth, women weren't afraid of having a secret affair, but of being discovered by a third party. Recalling the relationship between Li Yuanji and the Red Flower Society, Luo Bing's expression became complicated. Big sister Luo, why are you here? Li Yuanji's heart was also filled with contradictions toward this love rival of hers. On one hand, Yu Yutong had fallen in love with Luo Bing, and on the other hand, she knew that Luo Bing had always been deeply in love with her husband. She had never pretended to speak to Yu Yutong, and she often envied Luo Bing's gentle and affectionate charm. Sigh, something happened to the Red Flower Society this time. Luo Bing sighed as she briefly recounted what had happened. Then what about Yu Yutong? Li Yuanji asked with a trembling voice. He seems to have been captured as well. Luo Bing recalled the details of the incident. After hearing that the old branch master wanted him to use a honey trap, Yu Yutong had been in a daze. When the soldiers of the Wang residence charged in, he didn't even have a chance to resist before he was subdued. Brother Song, can you save him? Li Yuanji immediately turned to Song Qingshu. How many times has it been? It's their fault for being incapable, Song Qingshu said gloomily. Good brother, I beg you, I beg you. Li Yuanji began to act coquettishly again. Forget it, forget it. I'm scared of you. Saving one is saving. Saving two is also saving. I'll just save them all. Song Qingshu couldn't stand her deliberately coquettish tone and quickly agreed. Seeing Li Yuanji beaming with joy, Luo Bing felt rather upset. She wondered why she had to pay the price of her body in order for him to save her husband, but Li Yuanji just had to act coquettishly a few times. By the way, you two can sleep here tonight. I have to go out for a while, Song Qingshu said to the two women. He then turned around to leave. Wait, Song. Luo Bing paused, then continued. In the afternoon, after you left, someone delivered a strange gift. Do you want to take a look? A strange gift? Song Qingshu was puzzled. Why do you think it's strange? Luo Bing calmed herself down and said softly, You are now a dignified imperial envoy. In order to curry favor with you, the officials in Shengjing will either give you gold, silver, and jewelry, or antiques, calligraphy, and paintings. In addition, they are afraid that you don't know who sent them, so they all left a name card. But this gift not only doesn't have a name card, but although the box is exquisite, the things inside are a bit too ordinary. When Luo Bing was strolling around the courtyard in the afternoon, she saw the guards checking the various gifts that had been delivered, in case there were any traps or things like that would harm the imperial envoy. Unintentionally overhearing the mysterious gift, the guards were about to throw the gift into the trash, but out of curiosity, they went over to take a look. Sure enough, they felt that it was strange. However, she had been in Jianghu for a long time, so her subconscious told her that there was something fishy about this gift. Thus, she had the guards place it in the bedroom. Chapter 2:22. Dates and Peaches. Looking at the two boxes of fruits, Song Qingshu fell into deep thought. Li Yuanji picked up a date and examined it closely, but she couldn't find anything amiss. She asked blankly, Could it be that someone poisoned it? Song Qingshu chuckled. Don't worry, there's no poison in it. Tossing the peach back into the basket, Song Qingshu turned around and walked out. You all should sleep first. I'll be heading out for a while. If nothing goes wrong, I won't be returning tonight. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Luo Bing heaved a sigh of relief. Li Yuanji asked doubtfully, Then where will you be sleeping? A beautiful figure appeared in his mind, and Song Qingshu chuckled. There's always a place to sleep. After leaving the Four Quarters Embassy, Song Qingshu strolled calmly on the streets as he muttered to himself. This person wants me to save her husband. That person wants me to save her husband, and there's even someone who wants me to save her lover. Sigh. Could it be that I've really become the friend of women? With the lesson of the divine dragon cult waiting for the rabbit, Song Qing-shu was very careful this time. While walking, he used his true qi to investigate the surrounding aura. Along the way, he indeed felt several suspicious auras, but after turning left and right, he quickly got rid of the opposite party. Big Brother isn't good at anything, but at the very least, I have one skill, and that is movement technique. Song Qing-shu smiled gleefully as he swaggered off in a certain direction. In the Tian residence, Nan Lan suddenly woke up from her dream. She dreamed that she was intimate with Song Qing-shu, and her husband, Tian Guinong, suddenly barged in. Then, that bastard, Song Qing-shu, actually smiled at Tian Guinong before continuing to work on her body. Looking at her husband's murderous gaze, Nan Lan immediately woke up. Why would I have such a dream? Nan Lan touched her face with the back of her hand. Feeling the frightening heat, she couldn't help but bite her lower lip and mumble to herself in embarrassment. Madam, did you dream of me? An unfamiliar yet familiar voice suddenly sounded by her ear. Nan Lan raised her head in disbelief and saw Song Qing-shu sitting by the window, looking at her with a smile. Why is this dream so realistic? Nan Lan was stunned. She subconsciously rubbed her eyes and saw Song Qing-shu walking over from the window. She almost cried out in surprise. It's really you? Fortunately, she covered her mouth with her hand at the last moment, so her voice didn't alert Tian Qingwen, who was across the courtyard. You missed me, so I appeared. Song Qing-shu came to the bed in the blink of an eye. Nan Lan subconsciously tightened the quilt around her and shrank to the corner of the bed. It's so late. Please behave yourself, Prince Song. Self-respect? Song Qing-shu smiled and spread his hands. We've been honest with each other. Is there need to be so distant? Nan Lan's expression turned cold. Last night was only the reward I paid for saving Gui No. Now that the deposit has been paid, I hope that young master will not push your luck. Do you really have to make it sound like a deal between us? Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. All right, since you want to talk about complicated thoughts. Deal. Then let's talk about a deal. What deal? A trace of confusion flashed through Nan Lan's eyes. If I say that I've already found out Tian Guinong's whereabouts, will Madam welcome me a little? Song Qing-shu looked at the picturesque beauty on the bed. She was so delicate and timid that she was clutching the quilt tightly. As for her identity as someone else's wife, it helped to raise some evil thoughts in his heart. Guinong? Nan Lan suddenly felt that this name was a little unfamiliar. But as a wife, she subconsciously asked, How is Guinong? Madam, won't you invite me to sit? Song Qing-shu didn't answer her. Instead, he looked at her aggressively. You sit. Nan Lan's heart trembled when she met his gaze. She had a feeling that something would happen today. Thank you, madam. Song Qing-shu revealed a happy expression and directly sat on the bed. Sit on the stool. Nan Lan felt that since he was sitting so close to her, he definitely didn't have any good intentions. A woman's modesty gave her the courage to say this. It's late at night, and my limbs are a little frozen when I rushed here. The stool is too damp. Why don't Madam give me a corner of the quilt so that I can warm myself first and then talk to you about Brother Tian? Song Qing-shu didn't wait for her reply. He directly lifted a corner of the quilt and hid his feet. Okay. Nan Lan felt that her mind was in a mess. When she came back to her senses, Song Qing-shu had already shrunk under the quilt. You're so shameless. Nan Lan sighed. She could only curl up her legs and try her best not to touch his body. Song Qing-shu also knew that there was a limit. He didn't continue to force her. He opened his mouth and said, Today I went to Zhang Zhao Zhong's house to drink, and then Song Qing-shu slowly recounted what happened during the day, but he didn't mention a word about Tian Guinong. Nan Lan finally became impatient. You better talk about Guinong. Look at my poor memory. Song Qing-shu slapped his forehead, but he quietly moved towards Nan Lan's side. After that, I asked around and found out that Brother Tian was locked up in Prince Bao's residence. Nan Lan cried out in alarm. A trace of despair flashed in her eyes. Previously, When Tian Guanong returned home, he had boasted to her countless times that Prince Bao's residence had become an impenetrable fortress with the help of all the experts in the residence. Not even a fly would be able to escape. Song Qing-shu had already unknowingly moved to her side. He said gently, "Madam, don't worry. I've already contacted helpers. They will be able to rescue Brother Tian soon." "Really?" Nan Lan turned her head excitedly. She realized that Song Qing-shu's face was just 3 inches away from her. Her pink face couldn't help but blush. "Of course it's true." Song Qing-shu reached out a finger and hooked it under her smooth chin. "Madam, I've done my best for you. Do I get a reward?" Nan Lan's eyelashes fluttered. Her voice trembled as she said, "I've already given you a reward last night, but I don't think it's enough. What should I do?" Song Qing-shu's hand had already secretly slipped under her nightgown. He had come to bully Nan Lan again, not because of her beauty, but because of the rich, pure yin energy in her body. He was currently in danger in Shengjing City. Moreover, he had just received a warning from an unknown person to flee early. How could he not seize the time to improve his power and prepare for the upcoming danger? "Didn't you say that you'll pay me the other half of the deposit after the job is done?" Nan Lan dodged backward and pleaded. "But you also said that I can visit your residence when I'm free." Song Qing-shu's eyes were bright as he stared at her invasively. Nan Lan wanted nothing more than to dig a hole in the ground and bury herself in it. Before leaving the Four Quarters Embassy in the morning, she had, for some reason, teased him. She must have received her retribution now. She pitifully said, I was just joking, but I took it seriously." Song Qing-shu gently squeezed the thing in his hand. "To be honest, I don't have a place to sleep now. I need Madam to shelter me for a night." Nan Lan's face was so red that water could drip from it. "How can that be? Has your room been taken over by a vixen?" "Madam is indeed wise. There is indeed a vixen in my room." Song Qing-shu exerted a little more strength, and Nan Lan fell into his embrace. "Even if there is a vixen, the Four Quarters Embassy has so many rooms. Isn't there a place for you to sleep?" Nan Lan said softly with her head lowered. "One vixen is the greatest joy in the world, but 2 vixens is a little troublesome." In Song Qing-shu's mind, the saying, "one monk carries water to drink, 2 monks have too much water to drink, 3 monks have no water to drink," appeared. "I don't believe that, given your personality, you would still be willing to come out if there really is a vixen." Nan Lan was completely confused. She bit her lips and said, "No matter how beautiful a vixen is, how can she compare to Madam's beauty?" With a light flick of his hand, Song Qing-shu undid the bindings on her shoulders. Her clothes fell to the ground, revealing her shoulders that seemed to have been carved by a knife and her smooth skin. "Gui Nong's life is truly unfortunate to have a friend like you." Nan Lan sighed. A strong force came from the front of her, and she fell onto the bed. "I saved you and your wife once before, so I will save him again this time. You should be grateful to me." Song Qing-shu breathed a warm breath into her ear. "Grateful to you for bullying his wife?" Nan Lan's eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. During this period of time, she had been running around everywhere and was really too tired. Whether it was physically or mentally, she needed a strong arm to rely on. She would just leave the matter of saving her husband to him. "Are you stupid enough to let him know?" Song Qing-shu propped his hands on the bed and stared straight into her eyes. "Naturally not," Nan Lan subconsciously replied. "Then it's fine." Song Qing-shu pressed down on her and whispered, "Be good, don't close your legs. Don't worry." After a deliberately suppressed cry, Nan Lan looked at the man sitting cross-legged on the bed with a complicated expression. "It's almost dawn. You should go." "Isn't it still not dawn?" With Chu Fian's previous reminder, Song Qing-shu subconsciously paid attention to a woman's feelings. When cultivating, he no longer ignored his partner. He pulled Nan Lan into his arms, and according to the route of the true qi in his body, Song Qing-shu's fingertips moved across Nan Lan's skin at the same time. Nan Lan's body was covered in a layer of goosebumps. She pleaded, "Tian Guanong's daughter is in the courtyard. She has always been smart. If she sees me, I don't want to live anymore." "Don't worry," with my martial arts. She won't see me. Song Qingshu replied. But it's almost dawn. Nan Lan said anxiously. I didn't expect to be entangled with you for so long. Song Qingshu's words made Nan Lan ashamed and angry. Just as she was about to reach out and pinch him, Song Qingshu suddenly disappeared from the room. Looking at the empty bed, Nan Lan suddenly felt a little lost. She slowly sat up. For a moment, she didn't know what to think, sitting there in a daze. Who knew that not long after, Song Qingshu returned to the room and said to her with a smile, Now you don't have to worry about Tian Qingwen. Nan Lan was shocked and quickly asked, What did you do to her? Don't worry, I only hit her sleeping acupuncture point. Until tomorrow noon, she won't wake up. You naturally don't have to worry about her seeing any flaws. Song Qingshu held her shoulders and slowly laid her flat on the bed. Your body is weak. You can't endure such torment. Quickly go to sleep and recover your energy. You still say that? These 2 days you're like a bear every time. Just because I'm someone else's wife, you don't care for me when you use me? Nan Lan's face had a trace of shyness and a trace of anger. Song Qingshu didn't expect that she would still take these words to heart. Feeling that it was funny, Song Qingshu also felt somewhat apologetic. He quickly apologized and coaxed her. Only then did Nan Lan gradually fall asleep. Song Qingshu then continued to cultivate. Chapter 223. When Nan Lan woke up the next day, although Song Qingshu's scent still lingered in her bed, he had long since disappeared. She sighed and got up to dress up. Looking at her rosy cheeks in the mirror, a trace of guilt flashed through her heart, but also a trace of sweetness floated in her heart. After leaving the Tian residence, Song Qingshu didn't immediately return to the Four Quarters Embassy. Instead, he walked alone on the streets of Shengjing. To save Xia Qingqing, to save Tian Gunong, to save the Red Flower Society, and to steal the 42-chapter sutra, Song Qingshu felt that there were already many scattered fragments in his mind, but he urgently needed an opportunity to link them together. Thus, he needed some quiet time to organize his thoughts. Suddenly, a commotion sounded in front of him. Song Qingshu raised his head and saw that he had unknowingly walked into the vicinity of Prince Bao's residence. A group of commoners were pointing at a notice and discussing it. The prince's residence is using 1,000 gold coins to seek a famous physician. I heard that many famous physicians have gone in, but returned without any results. Could it be some kind of strange illness? I don't know about that. Who in the prince's residence has fallen ill? Some say it's the crown prince's consort. Others say it's just an ordinary female member of the prince's residence. Would an ordinary female member of the prince's residence spend 1,000 gold coins to seek a doctor? Song Qingshu curiously walked over to look at the notice on the wall. It turned out that there was a woman in the prince's residence who had contracted a strange illness. She had a high fever that wouldn't subside, accompanied by a chest ache. Many physicians have been invited, but they were all at a loss. It's just a fever. No matter how bad the ancient physicians were, they shouldn't be unable to treat something like this, right? Song Qingshu was astonished. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that illness? Looking at the notice on the wall, a victorious smile appeared on Song Qingshu's face. He had found the opportunity. At the Wanhao Inn in the eastern part of the city, Su Quan looked at Song Qingshu and smiled tenderly. Lord Song, you came to look for me so quickly. Did you miss me? Sure enough, before seeing her, hearing her voice made one's body go limp. She was charming yet sweet. She was obviously a temptress who could turn all living things upside down, but one could faintly feel the innocence of a young girl. Song Qingshu sighed in his heart. If Su Quan returned to the modern world and became a CV or something, I'm afraid she would be even more seductive than Ji Guanlin's voice. I don't believe that Wu Song could really bear it. The people of the Divine Dragon cult had a strange expression on their faces. The fat and thin Duda looked at each other. The two Marshall brothers were telepathically connected. Very quickly, they started to communicate. Whore. Adulterer. Madam, you must be joking. This time, Song Mao wanted to discuss the matter of rescuing Tian Tian with your cult. Song Qing-shu deeply agreed with the idea of pretending to be a prodigal son in front of a good family and pretending to be a gentleman in front of whore. Su Quan looked at him in surprise. She felt strange that her charm technique did not seem to have any effect on him. She did not know if it was because of his profound skill or because he was really a modest gentleman. Hearing Song Qingshu's words, Su Quan smiled and said, "After I came back last night, I thought about it. The imperial residence is heavily guarded, and I felt that helping you to rescue Tian Tian was a good idea. Tian Guinong is too dangerous, and I'm not sure if Tian Guinong really knows about Prince Bao's plan. If I were to rescue him after suffering heavy losses, only to find out that young master was just using me, wouldn't I suffer a double loss?" Her tender voice sounded rather wronged. "I didn't ask you to use your honey trap." Song Qingshu cursed in his heart. This woman would only say a few words, and she would already be flirting with him. He had to be careful, lest he fell in her trap. Suddenly Song Qingshu stared blankly. Although he could not be considered as having been in a field of 10,000 flowers, he was also not that kind of pure and innocent little virgin. If Su Quan wanted to seduce him, it would be a bit difficult. Why was she so cautious? Thinking about this, his entire temperament became more natural. "Young master, you're making fun of me," Su Quan said, feeling wronged. "When did I?" Song Qingshu was stunned. "I saw the corner of your mouth curl up just now. You must be laughing at me in your heart." Su Quan looked like she was about to cry. Even Lu Gaoxian and the other subordinates who were usually afraid of her couldn't help but feel their hearts waver. Song Qingshu frowned. He thought that he was in a hurry to complete his mission. Where would he have the time to take his time with her? He opened his mouth and said, "Madam, you're beautiful, and your voice is even more beautiful. Although I would like to chat more with you. Let's get down to business first." Su Quan's breathing stopped. Her seduction technique had been defeated by him time and time again. It gave her the illusion that she was being stared at like a monkey by him. She couldn't help but scoff and say, "I've already said that saving Tian Guinong is too risky. We'll back out." Su Quan's voice had become clear and bright. Song Qingshu praised her in his heart and said with a smile, "In the underworld, honesty is the most important. Aren't you afraid of ruining the reputation of the Divine Dragon Order? I won't admit it. What can you do to me?" Su Quan smiled coldly. "What if I use the 42-chapter sutra to cooperate with you?" Song Qingshu didn't care that the other party's attitude had changed so quickly. He calmly threw out a condition that she couldn't refuse. As expected, when he said this, the breathing of the people from the Divine Dragon Order in the room quickened. Su Quan suppressed the excitement in her heart and pretended to not care. "It's just a Buddhist scripture. What use is it? Don't lie in front of a true person. If Madam continues to test me like this, I'll turn around and leave. I'll find someone else to cooperate with." After saying this, Song Qingshu actually walked out of the room. "Wait." Su Quan knew that she had lost the initiative the moment she opened her mouth. However, as long as she could obtain the 42-chapter sutra, she couldn't care less. "How do we cooperate? I'll give you something. Go find Hong Li and exchange it for the pure white flag's 42-chapter sutra." Hearing Su Quan's words, Song Qingshu's lips curled into a victorious smile. He turned around and looked at her. "Humph. What item is so precious that it can be exchanged for the 42-chapter sutra in Hong Li's hands?" Su Quan revealed an expression of obvious disbelief. Normal treasures naturally can't be exchanged for it. However, what if it's his grandson? Song Qingshu thought of the two infants he had saved in the rundown temple. He didn't think that his son would be of such great use now. Grandson of direct descent? Su Quan looked at him strangely. Fu Kangen's Fujin doesn't have any children. Fu Kangen's real Fujin naturally didn't give birth to a boy or a girl. However, by chance, Fu Kangan had seduced a woman among the people and caused her to bear a pair of twins for him. Ma Chanhua, who had been kidnapped by bandits in the rundown temple, was a young girl yearning for love. When she saw Fu Kangan, the elegant young master of an aristocratic family, she became infatuated and actually gave birth to him. What was even more coincidental was that after this one night of romance, she became pregnant with Fu Kangen's children. Moreover, they were twins. If he didn't guess wrong, that group of bandits were probably Fu Kangen's subordinates. He probably remembered that he had previously taken advantage of a beautiful commoner woman and was lustful, so he sent people to fetch her back. It was a pity that he didn't know that he had such a pair of sons, causing his subordinates to almost kill his own sons. Are they really Fu Kangen's sons? Su Quan felt that it was too much of a coincidence and subconsciously suspected that Song Qing-shu was lying to her again. Moreover, this kind of woman who can't even be considered a concubine, how can the children be considered as grandchildren of the first wife? When the time comes, you could try sending a letter over and you'll know. If it's fake, the people of the Wangfu will naturally ignore you. If they contact you, then it naturally proves that it's real. Song Qing-shu said lightly. According to common sense, this pair of twins can only be considered illegitimate children, and their identities can't be shown in public. But coincidentally, Fu Kangan doesn't have any other sons. Fu Kangan is greedy and lustful, and has many concubines, but none of them gave birth to a son or daughter for him. There have long been various rumors and slanders in the Wangfu. It's very likely that this pair of twins will be Fu Kangen's only sons in this lifetime. As the crown prince of Prince Bao, Hongli naturally won't just watch him die. When the time comes, it's most likely that Fu Kangen's Fujin will adopt these two children and announce to the public that they're the sons of the first wife's Fujin. Su Quan saw that his analysis was reasonable and was already somewhat convinced. But she quickly thought of another question. If that's the case, why don't you exchange for them yourself? From her point of view, Song Qing-shu was a rare commodity at this time, but he just had to give it to the divine dragon cult. It was inevitable that people would be suspicious. I have other things to do and can't split myself, Song Qing-shu explained unhurriedly. Even though there's a high possibility of using the twins to exchange for the 42-chapter sutra, Hongli definitely won't be willing to be threatened by you. Once the twins are in his hands, I'm afraid that he'll set up an inescapable net to hunt you down. Great benefits mean great risks. Madam, it's best that you consider it carefully. Su Quan smiled tenderly. At least you have some conscience. I thought you'd deliberately avoid the risks. Don't worry, if my divine dragon cult can't even handle this kind of kidnapping and extortion, then we don't need to mingle anymore. Song Qing-shu nodded his head in satisfaction. That's good, but I want half of the 42-chapter sutra. When the time comes, give me half, and I'll hand the twins over to you to deal with Hongli. So you're saying that you don't intend to hand the twins over to me first? Su Quan's voice turned cold. That's natural. Otherwise, when the time comes, you'll take the 42-chapter sutra and flee without a trace. Where will I go to find you? Song Qing-shu looked into her eyes, as if it was a matter of course. But do you know how much more difficult it will be for us to extort without the twins in our hands? Su Quan said angrily. That's your divine dragon cult's problem. Song Qing-shu smiled faintly. I understand what you're planning. Su Quan had an expression of sudden realization. You just want to use us to divert the attention of the prince's residence and use the tactic of luring the tiger away from the mountain to make it easier for you to rescue Tian Guinon. As expected, I can't hide it from Adam. But this isn't called using, it's called working together. Each taking what they need, Song Qing-shu replied. Su Quan stared at him for a while, then suddenly smiled and said, All right, when the time comes, I wonder which half of the 42-chapter sutra does young master want. The first half, Song Qing-shu said after a moment of hesitation. Oh, but I also want the first half. What should I do? How about I give you the second half? Su Quan said as she stared closely into his eyes. A hint of joy flashed across Song Qing-shu's face, but he deliberately put on a helpless expression. A gentleman will help others achieve their goals. Since Madam wants it, then Madam can choose first. Forget it, since young master likes the first half. Then take the first half. Su Quan smiled like a fox. Song Qing-shu found it hard to hide his dejection. Let's talk about the distribution after the matter is done. Watching Song Qing-shu disappear into the street, Lu Gaoxian closed the window and looked at Su Quan, saying, "Madam, could it be that Song Qingshu deliberately tricked me just now, and what he really wanted was the first half?" Chapter 2:24. Lu Gaoxian thought that women were indeed more ruthless than men, but he still felt the need to remind her. But if Song Qingshu doesn't give us Fu Kangans illegitimate children, we probably won't be able to escape the pursuit of Prince Bao's residence. Lu Gaoxian, where did your usual cleverness go? Why do we have to be led by the nose by Song Qingshu and do everything according to his arrangements? Su Quan's face was full of smiles, but her voice already carried a trace of coldness. Lu Gaoxian was alarmed and hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate is slow-witted. Please instruct me, madam. Since we're going to use the twins to exchange for the 42-chapter sutra, why do we have to wait for Song Qingshu to give us the twins? Don't we know that we can find them ourselves?" Su Quan sneered. "Madam means to find another pair of twins to pretend to be Fu Kangans illegitimate children?" Lu Gaoxian asked. "That's not it. If Fu Kangans illegitimate children aren't twins, we can naturally find a random infant to replace them. Unfortunately, he gave birth to twins of the same age at the last minute. The difficulty is no less than finding the real one." Su Quan lay on her side on the couch, her fingertips lightly tapping on her thighs. Clearly, she was in deep thought. Lu Gaoxian hurriedly lowered his head after a glance, thinking that this cult leader's wife was indeed a natural seductress. If he didn't want to live anymore, he would definitely try kissing her. "Lu Gaoxian, your eyeballs are darting around. What exactly are you thinking about?" Su Quan's half-smiling voice sounded by his ear, and cold sweat immediately dripped down Lu Gaoxian's forehead. He hurriedly said, "I'm thinking about how to find the twins in Song Qingshu's hands." "From what Madam said, you seem to have an idea." Su Quan chuckled. "That's right. Song Qingshu has Fu Kangans illegitimate children in his hands, so he naturally wouldn't bring them to the Four Quarters Embassy. The Four Quarters Embassy is filled with Hong Li spies, and he isn't that foolish. Moreover, his subordinates were all men, and the babies needed milk every day. He would definitely find a wet nurse for the twins. If he were to find one in Shengjing City, it would be too conspicuous, and there would be a high chance of being discovered by the spies of Prince Bao's imperial residence. In that case, it would be impossible for him to bring the twins into Shengjing City. But his idea of using the twins to exchange for the 42-chapter sutra doesn't seem to have come up with it on the spur of the moment. Since he's been planning this for a long time, then the location of the twins can't be too far from him. Pass down the order. Have the brothers of the cult investigate the farmhouses on the outskirts of Shengjing, especially those who have just given birth to a child. Pay more attention and must find them as soon as possible." "Yes." Lu Gaoxian and the others hastily withdrew from the room. In their hearts, they secretly admired this charming cult master's wife. However, when they thought of the ruthless methods she used to punish the old ministers of the cult, they couldn't help but be half happy and half worried. After leaving the Wanhao Inn, Song Qingshu hid his tracks along the way. He bought some strange items from a few grocery stores in Shengjing City. Finally, he arrived at a residential house. Making sure that there was no one around, he snuck in. The owners of the house were a husband and wife in their 40s. Song Qingshu hid in the shadows and silently observed them. He observed the words and actions of the two until the sun set in the west. Only then did he stealthily leave. Returning to the vicinity of the Four Quarters Embassy, Song Qingshu wasn't in a hurry to enter. Instead, he carefully examined the surrounding buildings of the Four Quarters Embassy. In the end, his gaze locked onto a nearby inn. While concealing his tracks along the way, he activated his Qigong and climbed up the stairs. Glancing in the direction of the Four Quarters Embassy, he seemed to have understood something. Pressing his hand on the window, he exerted his strength and broke the latch inside. Then, he opened the window and jumped in. The moment he entered the room, he felt a gust of wind from a palm strike. The fragrance of a young lady lingered in the air. Song Qingshu dodged and hurriedly said, Don't do anything, it's me. The young lady was clearly taken aback by his appearance. After a short moment of panic, she calmed down and asked, "Who are you?" Song Qing-shu was taken aback. Taking a closer look, he realized that it was an unfamiliar and beautiful young lady. She was tall and slender, and her legs were long and slender. He hurriedly said awkwardly, "My apologies, I entered the wrong door." "Sienna, what's wrong?" Soon, a valiant-looking young man rushed in from the neighboring room. Upon seeing Song Qing-shu, he was clearly taken aback. The young lady hurriedly said, "Big brother." This person suddenly barged in from the window. Could he be a pervert? Seeing the young lady's discreet blink, the young man came to a realization and flew into a rage. "Pervert! How dare you set your eyes on my younger sister?" After which, he charged forward with a palm strike. Song Qing-shu was embarrassed. He didn't think that he would end up in such a situation. He could only dodge while explaining, "It's really a misunderstanding. I thought that a friend of mine was staying here." The young lady harumphed coldly. "You sure make it sound nice. What's the name of your friend? Call her out and let me confront her. I'm that friend of hers. I hope that the two of you can forgive me." A crisp voice suddenly sounded from the entrance. Song Qing-shu looked up and saw Zhu Yanai in a green robe. Her female companion, who was dressed as a man, was standing at the door and looking at the people in the room with a frown. The young man and the young lady couldn't help but be taken aback. Song Qing-shu took the opportunity to jump out of the battle and came to Zhu Yanai's side. He quickly said, "I wanted to find her." Zhu Yanai also nodded. "I live next to you. My friend here remembered the wrong room. Please forgive him." "I see." The young man and the young lady looked at each other and pretended to be impatient. "Be careful next time." Then they slammed the door. Zhu Yanai glanced at Song Qing-shu with a faint smile and led him to her room. "Do you always use such a sneaky method to break into a girl's room? Isn't it an accident? I thought you lived there." Song Qing-shu was a little embarrassed after making such a big mistake. "You thought I lived there?" Zhu Yanai said lightly. "What if I was taking a bath?" "This." Song Qing-shu was embarrassed. "It's broad daylight. Why are you taking a bath?" "When I was in the palace, I would take a bath at any time as long as I was happy. Besides, it's already dark." Zhu Nianji looked out of the window. "It's already dark." Seeing Song Qing-shu's hesitation, Zhu Yanai showed a faint smile. "Okay, I was teasing you. By the way, how'd you find this place?" Song Qing-shu heaved a sigh of relief and found a stool to sit down. "I wanted to contact you, but I didn't know when you would respond. Recalling that you said that you tied a yellow cloth to the tree in the courtyard, I boldly guessed that you might be hiding in the vicinity of the Four Directions Embassy. I looked around, and the location of this was just right. Then, based on the angle of the courtyard, I deduced that you might be in your room. I didn't expect that there would be someone else staying there. Right? Do you know the background of this pair of siblings? When I exchanged blows with them earlier, I could sense that their cultivation isn't weak. To possess such strength at their age, they shouldn't be nameless individuals. You're obviously young, so why are you acting like an old man?" Zhu Yanai rolled her eyes. "I'm not sure either. The siblings seem to live in seclusion. According to the innkeeper, they seem to be merchants who came to Liaodong to buy ginseng." Merchants? Recalling the scene just now, the handsome man and the beautiful woman, Song Qing-shu fell into deep thought. "Why are you in such a hurry to find me?" Zhu Yanai asked softly. "It's mainly about saving Qingqing. I have a plan. In the next 2 or 3 days, I'm afraid I'll need you to accompany me to the prince's mansion." Speaking of Xia Qingqing, Song Qing-shu's voice became quiet. "The two of us are going to barge in just like that?" Zhu Yanai looked at him doubtfully. "Of course not. I've thought of a secret plan," Song Qing-shu said. "That's it." Zhu Yanai frowned. "What are we going to do? Now is not the time to tell you. You'll know when the time comes." Song Qing-shu didn't want to reveal his plan now. Zhu Mang looked at him blankly. A hint of anger surfaced on his face, but quickly disappeared. "If you don't trust your companions and think that you can accomplish everything by yourself," he said in an indifferent tone, "the worst that can happen is another Xiang Yu who committed suicide at the Wu River, and not the Liu Bang who founded the Han Dynasty for 400 years. Song Qingshu fell into silence. Looking at the beautiful face of the beauty in front of him, he sighed softly. After all, you're the holy maiden of the Ming dynasty. At least you'll tell me your concerns now, which is also a kind of progress. Hearing his words, a smile appeared on Zhu Yui's face. She stretched her body and leisurely leaned on the bed. To win others' trust, you have to trust them first. Since you don't trust me, I'll trust you. I won't ask about your plan. When the time comes, I'll do whatever you want me to do. If you are scheming against me, like capturing me and handing me over to Kangxi, or try to avenge the Ming cult, come, destroy my chastity, I'll admit it. Who told me to trust the wrong person? Looking at her smiling face, Song Qingshu felt as if he had come into contact with a territory that he had never touched before. Is this the bearing of the royal family? Song Qingshu was a little absent-minded. He understood that no matter in his previous life or now, due to the limitations of his identity, he naturally lacked something valuable. He had laughed at Luo Binghong for having a low vision, but he was the same. What? Are you touched by me? Zhu Yunai jumped off the bed, put her hands behind her back, and bent down to look into Song Qingshu's eyes. I'm wondering if the princess has ever considered marrying a husband. Song Qingshu raised his head and smiled. Zhu Yunai immediately blushed. She shrank back and said lightly, "Don't think about it. I will never marry in this life. It's getting late. Prince Song, please go back." Hearing her order to leave, Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Although he was still a little reluctant, he had to leave. Noticing that Song Qingshu had left the inn, Su Yin asked in a low voice, "Xian'er, why did you expose your martial arts just now? I thought he was a pervert. Who knew it was that bastard?" Yelu Nancian pouted and said angrily, "Master Su, you really can't blame Xian'er in that situation." Yelu Qi hurriedly said, "Although it wasn't exposed, I'm afraid it has already aroused his suspicion. Let's go to another inn." Su Yin said. Chapter 225. Song Qingshu is in a mess right now. He doesn't have the energy to care about us. Even if we suddenly disappear, he'll only be suspicious. If we stay here, he can arrange people to spy on us. It'll be inconvenient for us to move around. Su Yin's voice was calm, as if he had everything planned out. All right, that woman just now seems to be stronger than me and Xian. Yelu Qi had a deep impression of Zhu Yaoyao. Even though she was disguised as a man, her elegant temperament couldn't be hidden from the observant. Let's put that woman aside for now. Let's go. Su Yin stood up and hid his entire body in the cloak. No one could see that he was wearing a mask. Yelu Qi and Yelu Nancian quickly packed their luggage and followed. Are they gone? Zhu Nuo, who was next door, watched the three people hurriedly disappear through the window and thoughtfully frowned. Brother Song, you're finally back. I haven't heard from you since you went out last night. I was so worried about you. Seeing Song Qingshu walk in, Li Yuanji jumped up excitedly. Although Luo Bing didn't say anything, she also stared at Song Qingshu with a complicated expression. It was hard to tell whether it was concern or hatred. Worried about me? Song Qingshu smiled. You're probably worried that no one will help you save your sweetheart if I die. Stinky brother, why are you so bad? Li Yuanji spat and ran back to Luo Bing. Sister Luo, help me say something. Luo Bing smiled unnaturally. Say what? She thought. I've been played by your brother Song. What right do I have to say anything? Do you think we've been worried about him for a day and a night? Li Yuanji held her arm and proudly raised her chin at Song Qingshu. Of course not. Luo Bing blushed. When they slept together last night, they did talk a lot about Song Qingshu. But most of it was Li Yuanji talking and Luo Bing dealing with it casually. Really? Song Qingshu looked Luo Bing up and down. His stare made her uncomfortable. So Sister Luo also cares about me. Who's your sister? Luo Bing added in her heart. How could a younger brother treat his sister like that? Sigh, you've been working so hard to find out more about your husband? I'm here to find out more about my sweetheart, but I'm greeted with such an attitude. What a tragedy. Song Qingshu let out a long sigh. Brother Song, please take a seat. Li Yuanji obediently brought over a stool and placed it beside the bed. Brother Song, you've worked hard. Let me massage your shoulders. You want to bribe me and find out Yu Tong's whereabouts for me? Song Shu sat down and felt the right amount of pressure on his shoulder. He grunted comfortably and said, "You don't say. I'm a sucker for that." Then he lifted his foot and placed it on Luo Bing's thigh. "Help me massage my foot too." Luo Bing frowned and immediately stood up. However, when she saw Li Yuanji winking at her, she had no choice but to suppress her anger and sit down again. Then, she pinched the flesh on Song Qingshu's thigh with both hands. Song Qingshu sucked in a breath of cold air and sighed. Pain and happiness. Li Yuanji giggled. "That must be because you're too annoying. Sister Luo couldn't stand it anymore and punished you. You should know that Sister Luo is recognized as a gentle, warm, virtuous, and considerate wife in the eyes of the Red Flower Society." Luo Bing felt her face burning. Would a gentle and virtuous wife sleep with another man behind her husband's back, even though she was half-forced? Song Qingshu looked at Luo Bing, his eyes full of smiles. "Of course I know Sister Luo is a good wife, but it's a pity that we can only appreciate her on the surface. I'm afraid only fourth brother one can enjoy her most unreserved gentleness." Luo Bing heard his words and suddenly increased the strength of her hands. "Of course, who asked you to be born a few years later? When you met Sister Luo, she was already married. You deserve to be unlucky." Li Yuanji didn't notice the turbulent undercurrent between the two and continued to add oil to the fire. Luo Bing couldn't stand it anymore and immediately interrupted her. She looked at Song Qingshu and said, "Let's ask him to tell us if he has any news about the Red Flower Society." "Sigh, it's unfortunate news." Song Qingshu let out a long sigh. Luo Bing and Li Yuanji's hearts immediately tightened. They hurriedly asked, "Did something happen to Brother Wen, Yu Tong?" "Oh, that's not it," Song Qingshu replied. "Then what unfortunate news did you say?" The two women glared at him. "In a few days, I will go to the Wang Mansion to save people. At that time, you will be able to see your husband and sweetheart. Isn't this unfortunate news for me?" Song Qingshu said gloomily. "Scoundrel, I don't care about you." Li Yuanji stopped pinching him and directly ran over to whisper to Luo Bing. "I knew it would be like this. It's too cruel to burn the bridge after crossing the river." Song Qingshu withdrew his foot. He didn't care how noisy the two women were and closed his eyes to rest. After some time, Li Yuanji's weak voice came. "Brother Song, aren't you going out tonight? Who was the one who said that she was worried about me after I left?" Song Qingshu's lips moved slightly. "In order to prevent you from worrying, I will sleep here tonight." "Ah!" Li Yuanji exclaimed. Luo Bing was not as shy as her. In any case, he had already experienced what needed to be experienced. Moreover, with Li Yuanji here, he would not dare to bully her. "Didn't you call me good brother very smoothly? Later, move some space on the bed and let me squeeze in." Song Qingshu looked at her and deliberately teased her. "How can I do that?" Li Yuanji said embarrassedly. It was naturally not a problem to joke with him, but to share a bed with a man, she really could not do it. Moreover, Sister Luo is also sleeping on this bed. She is a married woman. Aren't you afraid of ruining her reputation? Isn't it fine as long as we have a clear conscience? Sister Luo, don't you think so? Song Qingshu turned his face and stared into Luo Bing's eyes as he asked. Unable to stand his aggressive eyes, Luo Bing turned her face to the side. "Of course I don't care. When the time comes, he will sleep next to you." "Sister Luo, how can you be like this?" Li Yuanji did not think that Luo Bing would sell her out in the blink of an eye. She said in a bad mood, "Brother Song, find a guard to send a blanket over. I will sleep on the floor. Since Sister Luo does not mind, then let her sleep with you." "But I'm afraid that fourth master one will mind." Song Qingshu said with a smile. "Forget it. I was just teasing you. I will sleep on the floor later." Oh, although Li Yuanji felt that it was not good for her to be in the same room with a man, she remembered that she was with Luo Bing. At least she was not in the same bed with him. It was already a great victory, so she reluctantly acquiesced. "It's not that I don't have a place to sleep, but I have to wait for news. In order not to miss the opportunity, I will not leave this place for the next 2 days. Song Qingshu thought about it and explained. No matter how Song Qingshu explained, the two women felt strange with another man in the room when they were sleeping. However, Li Yuanji was still a young girl, and she had a good impression of Song Qingshu. Although she was a little uncomfortable at first, she quickly relaxed and fell asleep. Seeing her sleeping appearance, Luo Bing covered her forehead. This woman really, she trusts that demon so much. She doesn't even know that her chastity has been ruined while she is asleep. There was something that Luo Bing had always felt strange about. Why did Song Qingshu show such an evil side in front of her? But in front of Li Yuanji, he showed the brightest and most upright side. For a long time, because Yu Yutong was infatuated with her, she always felt a little happy in her heart, even though she did not want to admit it. When she found out that Li Yuanji's love for Yu Yutong was fruitless, she felt a faint sense of superiority in her heart, although she did not want to admit it. In the end, this pitiful sense of superiority was mercilessly shattered in front of Song Qingshu. She could clearly feel that Song Qingshu treated Li Yuanji much better than he treated her. But why? In terms of beauty, figure, and personality, she did not lose to Li Yuanji in any aspect. Was it because she was married? However, during those few intimate encounters, she could clearly feel that her identity as a wife seemed to bring a different kind of stimulation to Song Qingshu. What are you thinking about? You're so engrossed. When the terrifying voice rang in her ears, Luo Bing's first reaction was not to look at Song Qingshu, but to look at Li Yuanji, who was beside him. Li Yuanji's eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she was about to wake up. Song Qingshu stretched out his finger and poked her a few times. Li Yuanji let out a meaningless murmur and continued to sleep. I'm really curious. Are you afraid of me? Or are you afraid that someone else will find out about our affair? Song Qingshu carefully squeezed between the two women and looked at Luo Bing with a smile. Affair. Luo Bing was about to faint from anger. She immediately turned her head away and ignored him. Could it be that it's not? Song Qingshu reached out a finger and hooked her face over. Although I forced you at first, you were very cooperative later on. You even enjoyed it. Stop talking. You're a demon. Luo Bing covered her ears and shouted. Thank you for your compliment. Song Qingshu stretched out his hand and wrapped it around her soft waist. He pulled her in front of him. I really wonder how you're going to live with your fourth master when in the future. Will your mind always be filled with happy days with me? Why are you doing this to me? Luo Bing's eyes were filled with tears, and her voice was already sobbing. Why? Song Qingshu smiled coldly. Do you know that because of a few words you said back then, my entire plan almost collapsed? Although I found Xia Qingqing now, she's already the Fujin of Prince Bao. How do you think I should thank you? I know I've wronged you, but you've already taken your revenge. Why do you have to torture me like this? Luo Bing took the initiative to look at Song Qingshu's eyes for the first time. Torture you? Just think of it as my bad taste. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. When Tai Lai repaid kindness with ingratitude and seriously injured me with one palm strike. If it weren't for my good fortune, I would have died at the hands of my enemy that night because of my injuries. What he gave me, I should have returned it to him tenfold. It's just that when Tai Lai didn't make a sound after being tortured so many times in prison. I also know that he's a tough man. If I had taken my revenge on him directly, I'm afraid he wouldn't have minded. So I changed my revenge to his delicate wife. When Luo Bing heard his words, she was shocked. You want to tell fourth brother one about us? That's my plan. Noticing that Luo Bing's expression had changed, Song Qingshu smiled and said, but I haven't had enough fun yet. I probably won't tell him for a while. In the future, it'll depend on your performance. What performance? Luo Bing asked absent-mindedly. If you serve me well, I naturally won't be willing to tell him. Song Qingshu's fingertips slowly slid along the curve of her waist. You plan to blackmail me for the rest of your life. Luo Bing finally understood and felt that her life was full of darkness. Is there a problem? Count yourself. How many times have you and your wife harmed me? And how many times have I saved you? I don't think it's too much for me to take revenge on you like this. As long as you perform well, I'll promise you that I won't reveal our relationship to your husband. By then, you'll still be the warm and generous heroine Luo in people's eyes, and the gentle and virtuous wife in your husband's eyes. What else are you dissatisfied with? Song Qingshu's voice was full of evil. Don't say any more. Luo Bing's heart had completely collapsed. She felt that she seemed to be tempted by the other party's seemingly reasonable words. When she realized this, she felt even more pain. Since you're tempted, then perform well for me to see. Song Qingshu gently pressed his palm on her head and slightly exerted force. Luo Bing quickly realized what the other party wanted her to do. She subconsciously wanted to refuse, but the force from the top of her head indicated that the other party would not allow her to refuse. She could only sigh and crawl into the quilt. Chapter 2:26. Li Yuanji woke up before dawn the next day. She turned her head to see Song Qingshu sleeping on the floor and sighed in relief. She turned back to look at Luo Bing and felt that she seemed to be more beautiful than usual. She was a little depressed for a moment. No wonder Yu Yutong liked her more. She moved her feet and her face turned red. She felt something wet and cold down there. She recalled that she seemed to have had a very beautiful dream last night. She dreamed that she was in an empty courtyard. Li Yuanji curiously ran to the window and saw a man and a woman doing that kind of shameful thing. She subconsciously prepared to leave, but the woman inside suddenly turned her head. The beautiful face under the messy hair was actually Luo Bing. Li Yuanji was shocked and looked up to see who the man on top of her snow-white body was. Unfortunately, she didn't know whether it was because of the dream or something else. The man's face seemed to be trapped in a fog, and she couldn't see it clearly. Li Yuanji saw Luo Bing's obedient and cooperative look and subconsciously thought that the man was Wen Tai, but a voice in her mind told her that it wasn't. She was also worried that the other party was Yu Yutong, so she didn't know whether to leave or stay. In the end, she watched the whole process. Li Yuanji was a young girl and couldn't bear such a strong visual impact. She unconsciously felt her body go limp as if she was immersed in water. Finally, she unknowingly fell asleep. Why would I have such a shameful dream? Li Yuanji touched her face, confused and shy. She turned back to look at Luo Bing and thought to herself, I wonder if Sister Luo is really as shameless as in my dream. She's even willing to do such a shameful position. Li Yuanji's movement quickly woke Luo Bing up. She opened her eyes and looked at Li Yuanji. Although she was also ready to get up, her body was so limp that she really didn't want to move even half a finger, so she simply closed her eyes again. Because of Li Yuanji's presence last night, Luo Bing's body became even more sensitive due to psychological reasons. That kind of bone-chilling feeling even made her feel a little uncontrollable. I hope he can keep his promise. Luo Bing's eyes were half closed as a thought flashed through her mind, and she fell asleep in exhaustion. Seeing that Luo Bing's eyes were closed again, Li Yuanji turned her head to look out the window. The sky was still green, so she knew that it was still early. She lay down again and covered herself with a quilt. She twisted her legs and thought to herself with a red face, after Brother Song goes out today, I must take a bath, or else it will be too uncomfortable. When the first ray of sunlight shone through the window, Song Qingshu felt something and sat up. He drew a circle with his hands and slowly gathered the genuine qi in his limbs and bones into his dantian. Exhaling the turbid air from his mouth, he felt refreshed. He had not wasted his time singing every night. His joyous, genuine qi had been greatly nourished and had recovered to 60% of its peak power. Although the quantity of his inner force was not as good as before, its quality was far better than before. Now that he had recovered 60% of his inner force, his strength had been fully restored. The joyous yin is really a good thing. It can increase one's inner force by combining it with a woman's yin and yang. Presumably, any man would be able to practice diligently. However, the capacity of a person's dantian is limited after all. According to this trend, will it eventually reach a certain extent and no longer be able to grow? A trace of doubt flashed through Song Qingshu's mind. Brother Song, looking at the divine light in your eyes, your inner force must have improved to a higher level. What kind of martial arts are you practicing? How did you improve so much in one night? Li Yuanji sat by the bed, while Luo Bing knelt behind her and helped her comb the braid on her head. I have to thank Sister Luo behind you. If it wasn't for her, my inner force wouldn't have improved so quickly. Song Qingshu deliberately glanced at Luo Bing and said with a smile, As for the martial arts that I practice, I'll practice with you in the future if there's a chance. Sister Luo, how did you help him practice? Ouch, it hurts. Li Yuanji had just opened her mouth to ask when she felt a few strands of her hair being pulled off by Luo Bing. I'm sorry, Sister Yuanji. Don't listen to his nonsense. He's practicing on his own. What does it have to do with me? Luo Bing's face was bright red as she hurriedly explained. Lord Song, Lord Song? At this moment, Zhang Kanyan's voice came from outside the door. Song Qingshu turned around to look at Li Yuanji and Luo Bing, who were on the bed. The two women hurriedly put down the bed curtain. At this moment, their clothes were untidy, revealing the white underwear underneath. Although they didn't mind being seen by Song Qingshu, if another man came in, they wouldn't be treated so well. Song Qingshu waved his hand, and the blanket on the floor rolled into a ball and rolled under the bed. He didn't want his subordinates to see him sleeping on the floor. Seeing that the two women had also hidden themselves, he coughed and shouted, Come in. Zhang Kanyan walked in with his head lowered. His eyes glanced at the bed curtain that was moving even though there was no wind and the two pairs of shoes on the floor. His heart was filled with disgust. This Lord Song really had this kind of style. Noticing his strange expression, Song Qingshu didn't think much of it and directly asked, Is there something you need from me so early in the morning? That's right. Zhang Kanyan glanced at the side of the bed and hesitated for a moment. He came to Song Qingshu's side and said in a low voice, The twins have been snatched away. When did this happen? Song Qingshu's heart moved. So the Divine Dragon Order had made a move. About an hour ago, Lord specially ordered me to pay attention to the movements over there. When I received the news, I immediately came to report to Lord, Zhang Kanyan replied. All right, I understand. You can go now. Don't tell anyone else about this. Song Qingshu waved his hand. Yes. Zhang Kanyan's heart trembled. Having worked in the palace for many years, he naturally understood that there were secrets that could not be revealed everywhere. It was better to avoid trouble than trouble. Watching Zhang Kanyan disappear through the door, Song Qingshu thought to himself, I didn't expect the Divine Dragon Order to be so powerful in Shengjing. I thought they would need at least tomorrow to find the twins. Little sister Yuanji, big sister Luo Bing, I have to go out for a while. I'm afraid I won't be back for a day or two. Song Qingshu took out some of the groceries he had bought yesterday from the cabinet, organized his luggage, and spoke to the bed. Luo Bing felt a chill run down her spine when he called her big sister Luo Bing. She thought that if she hadn't personally experienced it, she wouldn't have known that such an evil heart was hidden under his harmless appearance. Good big brother, where are you going? Li Yuanji was the best at making people happy. She had used this ability to coax Lu Feiqing into accepting her as a disciple and teaching her everything she knew. You're such a sweet talker. Song Qingshu was also amused. I know what you want to ask. The operation to rescue your man will begin now. Good big brother, you're the best. Li Yuanji beamed while Luo Bing had a complicated expression on her face. She had been staying at Song Qingshu's place for the past few days. Although she had to endure his bullying at night, overall, she felt quite at ease. If Wen Tai was rescued, how would she face her husband? Moreover, the Red Flower Society had prepared for her to use a honey trap. Could it be that after rescuing the Red Flower Society, she still couldn't escape the fate of returning to Song Qingshu's side? No. This time, Song Qingshu saved the entire Red Flower Society. The previous hatred should also be written off. As long as fourth brother doesn't know that I was by Song Qingshu, it should be fine. Fourth brother, I'm sorry. For the future of the Red Flower Society, I have to hide this from you. Luo Bing's thoughts ran wild before she gradually calmed down. Yesterday, after returning to the Four Quarters Embassy, Song Qing-shu had his guards head to the tavern nearby to investigate the whereabouts of the siblings, but they had already disappeared. Song Qing-shu suspected that there was a third party monitoring him from the shadows. While he was being careful, Song Qing-shu called for an inner palace guard to enter. After striking his sleeping acupoint and changing into his clothes, he said to the two ladies, "I've already told my subordinates that I will be cultivating for the next 2 days and will be staying in my room. No one is to disturb me. Work with me and try to create the illusion that I've always been in this room." "All right." The two ladies nodded. Li Yuanji said, "Big brother Song, be careful. What about you?" Song Qing-shu turned around and looked at Luo Bing with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. Luo Bing turned her head away. After a moment of silence, she said in a voice as quiet as a mosquito, "You have to be careful." Song Qing-shu's interest was piqued. He sat back down and looked at the two ladies with a smile. "This trip is bound to be fraught with danger. Let me imagine a scenario. If I save your man, I will die. If I don't save him, I will be able to escape successfully. Do you want me to save him or not?" Li Yuanji's face paled. After a moment of hesitation, she shook her head. "If that's the case, big brother Song, don't save you, Yutong. Otherwise, I won't be able to rest easy if you lose your life after saving him. If Yutong dies, I'll just die with him. This lass has a conscience." Song Qing-shu turned to look at Luo Bing and asked, "What about you, big sister Luo? You save fourth brother." Luo Bing's answer made Song Qing-shu's face turn cold. However, she didn't notice any of this and continued, "If you die, I'll die with you." It turned out that she no longer knew how to face her former husband. She had long wanted to die and hoped that Song Qing-shu could save Wentai so that she could make up for her guilt. Li Yuanji didn't expect Luo Bing's answer to be this and immediately looked at her strangely. Hearing Luo Bing's words, Song Qing-shu was also taken aback. Then he burst out laughing. "Don't worry, I'm not as useless as you men. I guarantee that I can save them without getting myself injured." That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.